Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
A very good evening everybody and welcome back for the final time this season to Evolution Sim Racing ahead of the final round of our Season 8 GT3 Championship here in Italy, once again this time at the iconic Monza GP circuit. Ahead of us tonight then, two 30-minute sprint races which will define our 5 champions here tonight, one of which has already been settled. Last week, Ricardo Luis Pereira put both hands on our Premier Division Drivers' Championship by securing 2 podium finishes, including a race victory last time out at Imola, seeing off his championship rival Christopher Starsmore by 128 points coming into the session tonight. The fight is still on, however, between Plug and Lucchesi, with an outside chance at the title for William Humphrey here in the Elite Division, and with a more favourable chance for Mr. Kalle Leskinen ahead of Alex Fretwell in the Pro Division, coming into tonight's race with a 93-point cushion with only 100 points left for the taking. Elsewhere over in Split B, the Evo Drivers' Championship is heating up considerably. 4 drivers still within contention, chasing down the leader, Wesley Van Ren. We've got Muntian, Miller and Turfkruer all within 100 points of the Dutchman. We had a little bit of drama in the Teams Championship last time out as well, and there's still plenty of opportunities for the order to be shaken up here tonight. Interestingly, with a new battle for the lead of the championship between 2 teams who were predicted to have a strong rivalry at the start of the season, but who've only truly forged that friction over the last couple of weeks. And to add to the drama, each of the 7 drivers in that championship battle are all scrapping for the same points in our Elite Division tonight, making each and every position on the circuit even more significant than it already is. And with that added dynamic of the team trailing them both in P3, containing drivers sourcing all of their points in Split B, so that really will add another element to consider as the drivers try to ensure they've done enough to bring home the points necessary to convert that title. So we'll cover all of our standings in a short while as always, and we'll see what else is to come. But first we must turn our attention to qualifying. And Dara, we've seen plenty of tense qualifying sessions already throughout this season, but given what's at stake this evening, this may prove to be one of the most important ones of them all.
Yeah, and I think Monza is a circuit where I think we see a lot of drivers come unstuck in qualifying. There's not a great deal of places where you can make or lose too much time around this circuit. Think about the first chicane, then at the Della Roger chicane, the Lesmos, Ascari, Parabolica. That's about it. And if you make a big mistake somewhere, you're not going to be able to really make up the time around the rest of the lap. So the tension really is going to be high for these drivers, and I think the attention span is going to be very much strained in the early stages of the qualifying session to get that banker lap time, because that could be absolutely crucial, particularly for those fighting for championships tonight.
Absolutely. Then we've seen a couple of guys struggling to put those laps together. Of course, 4 laps available for the drivers tonight in that 15-minute window, and they've got just about 10 minutes left of practice to really nail in these lap times ahead of that qualifying session then. So before we get into those details, let's take a look at the formalities of the series, of course, starting first with the series sponsors as always. So a big thanks to Kame for providing all the trophies that the drivers are fighting for tonight, and we'll soon see in about 2 hours time. We'll find out which of our drivers have got their hands on them after the last 10 weeks of racing then. So thanks to Kame, thanks to GP2 again as always for their support of the series, and as we covered in the opening videos there, thanks to VRS and Trophy AI for joining us on this championship, and I believe their sponsorships will continue into the future as well, so be sure to check out the Virtual Racing School and Trophy AI. All details can be found in the ESR Discord server. So a quick look at the calendar then. We've finally made it to the end of the season. It feels like a long time since we arrived at the Red Bull Ring, toward the end of March then, nearly 2 months ago. So we've made our way all the way through these triple headers. We've had a couple of American headers, and we've had this Italian double header, and now this sees us rounding off back in the dry conditions, which I'm sure the drivers will be pleased for here around the Monza circuit. And of course, the first time that ESR has arrived here, I think it's the first time that we've said that in quite some time. As we've always said, we've got a few circuits that appear every season, a couple that we chuck in there every now and again, but I believe Monza has never been on an ESR calendar, and we've had quite a few of them in the past. So a new challenge for these drivers to take, and I think it's only fitting to end a championship here, something that is unfamiliar to a handful of these drivers, at least in this setting then. So finally, before we look at the standings, the trophies that are on offer tonight is the night. We've been building this tension for the last 10 weeks, and now it's crunch time for these drivers to get their hands on what they've been working on. Some guys will win the trophy, of course, some guys will win the championship, and some will fall short and just win these trophies. The top 3 in each of our 4 divisions will get them, and then all of the drivers in the top 3 teams of the team's championship will also take home a driver's trophy then. So here we go, the moment that we've been looking forward to, and eyes on the championship standings coming into this final round of the season then. The elite standings first, as always. Tjek Plug is held strong in P1 for the vast majority of the second half of this season. Luke Lucchesi within 64 points. That's going to be a crucial deficit to work out as these drivers race on, and there'll be another interesting dynamic when we get to the team standings to see how those two might not only be looking at each other in terms of the drivers' standings, but also in the teams as well. As we said in the intro, William Humphrey is within a shot as well. He's not so far behind Lucchesi, who, as we said, is still within a chance at the championship, so keep an eye on that. William has by far had the strongest second half of the championship, alongside perhaps Vinciszewski's down there in P6. Tristan Dobriga in P4. He'll be wanting to get himself back inside the top 3. It'll be disappointing for him if he cannot do that, but his second half of the season, aside from those podium finishes, haven't been the best. We saw him have that horrible run of form in the mid-season. Kota standing out particularly as not the best session for Tristan. He'll be looking to get back on the horse once again. He's had some good results as of late. See if he can get on the back of Humphrey and try and take that final spot in what will be the top 3 of his division. Sam Derbyshire holding strong as well, 50 points off. He's got to really look in his mirrors behind the chasing Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver. Vinciszewski's, as we said, has had one of the best second halves to the season out of anybody in this division, so it's eyes on the RDSA drivers and the Vulcan Motorsports drivers for who can come out on top tonight. Luke King, steady throughout most of the season, more often than not inside the top 10, one podium to his name. It's going to be too much, I think, for him to try and get inside the top 7. The top 6, sorry. I believe P7 will be where he will hope to finish. Luke Van Goortel next up as well. A race win for the MJK Sim Sports driver early on in the season. Another podium to go with that, sitting comfortably on 333 points again, with an outside shot at taking one more place in the standings. Justin Eloff, a handful of DNFs, 2 of them coming last week, last time out around Imola, of course in tricky conditions for Eloff, so I'm sure that he'll be fancying his chances a little bit more here tonight, back in those dry conditions. Rounding out the top 10 with his eyes on the team's championship, it's Quinten Verdonk, another one of our Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers. Missed the first 2, or the first race session, the first 2 races, and since then he's barely finished outside the top 10, always finished inside the points. It's been a good strong season so far for Quinten, just about enough to mount a challenge in the teams and get himself inside the top 10 in the elite division. Hayden Phoenix Miller got himself back on the horse initially, then failed to score points once again. That's 4 DNFs from 5 races entered for the Phoenix Racing driver, who will be trying to get himself inside the top 10. Dominic Horvath-Sanity, a masterful race for him last time out at Imola, of course. Started on pole position, led the majority of the race before putting up a defence against Lawrence van der Water in the closing stages in the Pro division. But sadly for him, by the time the checkered flag fell, some of those quicker drivers had made their way through. The likes of Plurg, the likes of Humphrey came and overdone Dominic Horvath-Sanity, seeing him finish in his best, by far his best result of the season. Prior to that, it was P8 all the way back in round 2, and now he's got himself on the podium. I'm sure he'll be pleased to have stood there just once this season. Better than nothing.
It certainly is, and particularly towards the end of the season, you want to be having, if you're not in the championship fight, a couple of moments to remember. And that's definitely one for Dominic Horvath-Sanity. Over then, we look to the pro standings over the course of this season. It has been very clear who's been on top. It's been Kyle Eskinen, and he comes into tonight with quite a substantial championship lead. 93 points it is between the Finn and Alex Fretwell, who has been trying to chase him down after Kyle Eskinen really built up that margin in the first few races. You can see all 5 of his wins coming in the first half of the season. We'll see if he can pick up another win tonight, but if he can win a championship by just hanging on, you wouldn't mind too much. Fretwell has been good of late, but a couple of poorer performances, I think, if I'd say by his standards, have kept him a little bit further and out of contention. It would take a miracle for anybody but Kyle Eskinen to win the title tonight. Chris Jennings has emerged as a contender for the top 3 in the last few weeks. Again, consistency really getting him there. Consistent, being a word for a lot of these pro drivers, as those drivers who've been able to turn up week after week have picked up those top 10 results to find them where they are. P4 man at the moment is Victor Van Zijs, and he has been the informed driver in this tier. A win and 2 second places in the last 4 rounds, the last 2 weeks mind you, shows that he really is the one to watch out for tonight. And being only 15 points behind Chris Jennings and a possible trophy for a top 3 finish, he's going to be doing his best to put himself into that position tonight. Sadly for Biagio Cutrale, he was second in the championship for quite some time, but he has fallen back a fair bit in that Ferrari. A couple of DNFs in the last couple of weeks, and only getting himself into the top 10 3 times in the last 8 races. Mind you, 2 of them were podium positions, but still not exactly, I think, what he would have been looking for. Robin Brown is going to be coming to this race P6 as well. A lot of those points picked up in the middle of the season. It's going to be an outside shot for him to get into the top 3, but we'll see if the Simi GP2 driver can do much. David Hutchinson is 7th. He's the lead McLaren in this division, and a couple of podiums coming towards the start of the season would have kept him in this top 7, or top 8 really, because Stephen Codman is right behind him, and Codman's best result was last week, P4, twice it was, and he really did do a good job at Imola. So let's see if he can replicate some of that form here at Monza. Lorenzo Borghetto, again, consistency, you can't knock him for that. He's had 12th place 5 times in 14 rounds so far this season. That's not exactly the place I think you'd want to frequent all that often. He comes into this round P9. And then we look at Joshua Cohen, who's in 10th. He's not been here for a few rounds, but he's been good when he has attended. A win and a third place shows that. We'll see if he can consolidate that top 10 result this evening. After, well, just ahead, I should say, of Lawrence van der Voort, the real standout figure in this tier last week. Of course, nothing better than a P8 coming in. Oh, sorry, I should say a P6 coming into that. And he gets a 5th place and then a win in the second round. Fantastic for him. And he's now in the top 11. He'll try and hold on to it ahead of Joshua Ness. He's, of course, ahead on countback. But Joshua Ness has been a little bit sticky of late. Not even a top 10 in the last couple of weeks. But there is still hope. We'll see what they can do in the final couple of races of the season.
Good stuff then. It's good to see the drivers even outside the top 10 still battling for those final couple of points, of course. Let's see who can break the duck there between Van der Water and Ness coming into this final round then. And now we'll take a look at the teams championship, where things are definitely beginning to heat up, and we'll see there is a difference in what we saw last week. And of course, if you refer back to what I was saying earlier on, you'll understand that it's a big battle between these top 7 drivers in the A split, but then equally it'll be interesting to see how those 3 drivers of the Axis team get on, of course, being down there in B split. So RDSA reclaimed the lead at the top of the team standings after dropping to the Axis Sim Sports team this time last week, but a quick turnaround in Imola has seen them take the lead of that one again. 17 points ahead of Vulcan Motorsports Gold. Quinta Verdonk will have his part to play, but Vincenzewski's and Plurg will be looking at them to see if they can outscore points on the likes of Denobriga and Luke Casey. If I was a betting man, I'd say that it's going to be Vincenzewski's versus Denobriga, and then Luke Lucchese versus Plurg, both for the Drivers' Championship and for positions on the grid to try and bring home points for the teams. Critically, remember, it's the 2 highest scoring drivers in the team who count points toward the standings. So there's no advantage for RDSA in having 4 drivers registered. It will still only be the 2 highest points. They all have a part to play, though. It will only be the highest 2 bringing home the points. There's still an outside chance for the Axis team, of course. Being in Split B, theoretically can bring home more points on the table than the 2 teams above them. But at the moment, they've fallen just short of that as of the results that they got last week. And critically, it's Matthew Croft who serves a qualifying ban. He will start at the back of the grid in this final race of the season. So that will not do any good for the Axis team trying to get a good start. Let's keep an eye on that over in B split. I'll be checking it out. I'm sure you guys in chat will help me with that as well, and we'll see how those guys get on then. RLH are with us as well. Fretwell said last week he's not sure if he's going to make it. I gave him a message earlier. He said he is going to be here tonight. I haven't confirmed that, but we believe Fretwell will be with us on the circuit. There he is. So Alex doing what he can to challenge Kalle Leskinen in the pro class and also try and score some more points in the team's championship standings. The Vulcan Fastens by Glasstec Racing, William Humphrey, Nick Sturber and Dale Williams mount their chance as well, trying to get inside the top 3. It's still on for those guys to bring home a trophy. The first of the Camé GP2 teams next up in P6. It's Kostrick, Ludbrook, Bostock and Newton who will cross over the 1,000 point mark today, you would assume. Phoenix Racing next, Hayden Miller, Grant Miller and Robin Milton doing pretty well considering the points that Hayden has missed out on over the last couple of weeks to stay inside the top 7. We've also got Vulcan Motorsports Silver, Bjorn Klassens serving a qualifying ban as well tonight in A split here, and Ricardo Luis Pereira, of course, the champion in the Premier Division. Those guys will be, might have a bit of a spring in their step, particularly Pereira, to try and do another swell job here tonight. Simcast of Christopher Starsmore, he missed out by P2 in that Premier Division standing last week, so he will be a bit disappointed, but he'll be back for more, I'm sure. Then it's Matthew Hunter and Ross Noseworthy getting themselves inside the top 10. Moonshine is next, and they round out the top 10 ahead of the Suma GP2 Porsche team, the second of the GP2 teams, ahead of the MJK Sim Racing team of Luke Van Gortel, Van Zeist and Martin Koch. And then it's the Axis Sim Sports team of Jennings, Ellis and Cohen ahead of Virtual Racing team DDK, the third Axis team in P16. DXT, Matt Hoyland said in the chat a little bit earlier, he's not going to be with us tonight, but then he got FOMO, so he's now beating up the sim, and he'll be joining us for this qualifying session in just a short while. Then it's the 2 LS Racing teams rounding out P18 and 19 ahead of the NIFO's Glasstec Racing team of Jan Osberg, Klaas Vellen and Jan Naj, trying to get themselves a little bit closer toward the top 18 then. So So that'll round us off nicely, and we can cut now to trackside, where we find our drivers making their way around the circuit to start their first flying laps. Here comes Vinciszewski's around the Parabolica. It's quite a long run down toward turn 1 somewhere that I'm sure we'll see drama unfolding at the start of both of our races. Extra caution needed for a lot of these drivers, but as Vinciszewski's heads us down on his first qualifying lap, let's see who sets the initial pace here at the start of this qualifying session.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, important to get a good banker lap time in and get that confidence up early on in the session. It's not the longest session, and you've only got 4 laps to get it done, and you can see times are close. It's kind of what we expected to see here at Monza. It's a longish lap. It's 106 seconds for the elite drivers, 107 at the moment for the pro drivers. However, as we said, there are very few parts of the circuit where you can gain or lose time. Down here, the second and the chicanes is an important place for the elite drivers to try and nail, and with the curbs that we have here in iRacing, you can ride them just that little bit more. So it's nice to see Vinciszewski is taking full usage of that as he works his way now into the Lesmos. But with the times coming in, I think we are going to see a closer qualifying session than we normally do, and especially when you consider, you know, the tension coming into this round, we could see just the slightest of mistakes, losing a 100th or two, maybe making a big difference by the end of the session. Interesting, really, that Denobrica is fastest, because that qualifying form, you feel, has dipped off a little bit in recent weeks, but it seems like he's picked it up a little bit again tonight.
It has done. So Vinciszewski's through Ascari chicane now, making his way out of turn 10 down toward the Parabolica. Pretty good times, pretty competitive times at the moment at the front. Let's take a look at the gaps then between Denobrica and Vinciszewski's. Less than 2 tenths separating the top 4, and just over 2 tenths separating the top 7 here. So very, very competitive times between all of these drivers. Exactly what we expected. Interestingly, just an Elof in quite a favourable position at the front. That will be an interesting dynamic if he can be an additional car in between these drivers. Then Vinciszewski's posted time good enough to get himself in on the front row, but then he backs out and comes back into the pit lane, as does Denobrica as he's about to cross the line. So 2 of the leaders then back into the pit lane. Here comes William Humphrey around the Parabolica. Is he up on his lap time? We're about to see him come up on the timing tower. There he is. He's got a purple sector 2, but he hasn't improved in sectors 3 or 4 or 5, and Humphrey does not improve on that lap time. Quinton Verdonk slots himself up into the top 8. Meanwhile, in the pro class, it's looking good for Alex Fretwell, who posted time good enough at the moment to take the class lead.
Yeah, interesting to see that Fretwell, well, I mean, not really interesting, just generally good to see that he is doing everything he can to get himself a chance at the title. Realistically, he needs Kalle Eskinen to really crash in both races to have a chance here, but getting pole is doing everything he can. Also interesting that we've got the 3 Ferraris leading the way in that pro class, showing that the home support maybe is helping, maybe even in the virtual world as well. But we're kind of back to what we've been used to seeing in terms of seeing the Acuras and the Corvettes coming a little bit more to the fore in that elite class. The Porsches, of course, very good last week at Imola in the slightly wet conditions, but here at Monza, there's a little bit less of an advantage for them. So we're kind of seeing that in real time over the course of last week to this week, how that car choice can affect some of these drivers. Actually, take the Breitenbach brothers. They were really high up the order, weren't they, last week? Jean, though, at the moment, down in 14th place and leading a little bit of time to work his way up the order. It's a little while for these drivers to get a lap time or 2 in. I think a couple of them only have 2 more time runs, including William Humphrey, who only needs to find 2 tenths. He's fifth. Yeah,
I think that could have been an off track there for Humphrey. I'm not quite sure what the limit is around here, but that was quite wide at the exit of Ascari then, so we'll see. It looks like he's still pushing, and I think he will go one more time. Yes, he will, as he rounds the Parabolica once again. Will in the Porsche, as you said, Dara, and it's a little bit of an interesting one here. The straight line speed not so good in the Porsche, but it's great on the brakes, great over the curbs, which you need around these places, especially if you're going to try and take some time over all of the chicanes. But he might be pleased to know that we don't have too many BMWs, not too many Lambos, in fact no Lambos, and only a handful of Mercedes on the circuit as well, which would typically be a stronger car in a straight line, so it might not be too bad for these Porsche drivers. At the minute though, it's advantage to the Acuras. Denobrica and Vinciszewski still sitting at the front of the order. Sam Derbyshire in the Corvette, which might not be too bad around here either. He's making his way now onto what will be his third run. He'll have this one and one more to go, and at the moment I think he's probably stands himself in a great position to try to improve. Jack Plurg improving in the first and the third sector, but not in any of the others. He will soon be coming around the final corner as well. Let's ride on board went with Plug as he exits the Parabolica. Is he going to disturb the drivers on the front row of the grid?
Let's see, up towards the line. He's looking for the championship tonight, but he also wouldn't mind pole position. It's not going to be anywhere near, though, for him. He's a few tenths of a second off, and he will have to stay down in P6. It's a lap time that would have been good enough for P6 again. It's quicker than Luke Van Gordon's time, but not quicker than his own time, and then, of course, not quicker than anybody else's time, so he will stay down there where he currently is. Fretwell doesn't look like he's improving on this lap, and will go around again. But he does have that fastest lap in the back pocket for the time being at least, but it's less than a tenth of a second between him and Lorenzo Gorgetto. But it is almost comical to see those three Ferraris running at the front with a bigger gap between third and fourth than there is between first and third.
De Nobrega is about to cross the line. It's a 6.81 at the moment. It looks as though it's going to remain a 6.81. Yes, it is. Tristan, wow. Tristan went within 10 1,000ths of a second of his fastest lap, but couldn't improve on that occasion. Then he's now making his way out of the first couple of chicanes, now down toward turn 4. Be interesting for Tristan. I don't remember the last time he got himself up on the right at the front, right at the sharp end of the stick, but that'll be one hell of a way to start his fight, of course, trying to do what he can for the team. Sam Derbyshire does displace the Vulcan Motorsports Gold driver of Vic Krzyzewski's off of the front row of the grid within a tenth of De Nobrega, nearly within half a tenth of De Nobrega, who is improving on this lap. Tjek Plug also up in the second sector as well. Where's Luc Lucchesi in all of this? I'm looking up and down the sheet. He's currently in P9, half a second off the pace of his teammate De Nobrega, and crucially, he's in the pit lane. Only did 3 laps, so he did have one more in the tank, but that is the best position that Lucchesi is going to score tonight. P9 then for the championship challenger, while his rival Plug enters the pit lane as well. Best he can ask for is P6.
And even for William Humphrey, who's just about in it this evening, he's only good enough for P5. So it's going to be interesting, really, I think, to see the battle for P3 in that championship and who gets the trophy between De Nobrega and Vince Krzyzewski. It's their first and third coming into this race, and would, of course, be in the contention for a relatively mediocre position when we totally in the reverse grid into that. Fretwell's gone 9,000 slower than his pole time, so he's gone. Well, he set 2 lap times that would be good enough for pole in this session. Let's see if he can hang on to it, because Danny Phillips has put himself up into the top 2 now, and I think we are still waiting for a lap from Gorgetto and Cutrale, and with them being so close, you cannot rule out those two maybe being able to put it up onto a possible pole position. But we are seeing quite a few drivers now complete all of their lap times and come back into the pit lane. Not Holland, though. He's a second off. He's going again and hoping to put that Mercedes a little bit higher up the grid.
Cutrale then just about exiting Ascari, so he'll be crossing the line in no time. That's a little bit wide by the Mercedes of Matt Hoyland there, dipping the left tyres into the gravel then. Let's ride on board with Piaggio Cutrale. Here he comes around the Parabolica. He's not improved in the opening half of the lap, but he is improving in the 4th sector. What's his final sector going to be as he looks to trim the circuit down, narrowing off the distance as he crosses the line? Does he improve? He improves just enough to get himself within, well, onto the front row, not enough to take pole position away from Alex Fretwell. Gorgetto will be the next in the second of our virtual racing team Ferraris. Can he bring it 1, 2, 3 Ferraris at the front of the Pro Class? That would be a sight to see. Quite fitting as well for the 2 Italian drivers. Danny Phillips in the way of those 2 at the moment. Entry into the Parabolica then for Lorenzo Gorgetto, the 79, and he will be one of our final significant drivers to cross the line. We've still got Breitenbach, Gonzalez, and Matt Hoyland, who's also entering the Parabolica as well. De Nobrega is about to take over on his final lap time, and Gorgetto steals pole by just under 2.5 tenths. It's a 47.183. Fretwell will be disappointed. Gorgetto will be over the moon with that, but it's not so bad for those 3 Ferraris who will start at the front, and champion Kalle Leskinen down there in P8. That will be the best he can ask for. De Nobrega does improve at the end into a 46.6, just over a tenth from Sam Derbyshire. Everyone else has finished. Young Gonzalez crosses the line, the final man out there on the track, with 2 minutes to go before we get underway here.
Yeah, and that'll be pretty much that. William Humphrey is creating some lines. Maybe he's trying to see it from a different perspective. And, well, I don't know. He's going back to the pit lane, though. He will start in P5, but what a lap time that is for Gorgetto by the end of the session. Really impressive to see him pop it up there by a couple of tenths when it was looking so close beforehand. And that's by far his best qualifying of the season. And like we said, he's been on a run of 12th place finishes so far, but I think he'll be looking for a little bit more than that if he's starting on pole.
He absolutely will then. So it's an interesting one with Leskinen a little bit further down there. We've seen him there before, and it's always turned out okay, but at the moment, it's advantage to Fretwell. Now, of course, 93 points was the gap, so Fretwell does need to score as many as he can, of course. 50 points on offer in this first race, so we'll keep tabs on that, of course, but Fretwell really would need to win this race, with Leskinen scoring very little, if any points at all, for him to stand a chance going into race 2, but I'm sure we'll do the maths as we go along for that pretty straightforward battle. What will be slightly harder to work out is the Teams Championship. I'm not sure if you fancy that one, Dara, because James will help us with that one later on, of course. If you fancy it, give it a go. But I think it's quite clear to work out Plurg and Lucchese and Fretwell and Leskinen, but including multiple drivers in that calculation might make it a little bit trickier.
It does, doesn't it? And the maths is never our friend in these kind of situations, but we can always give it a go and see what we can come up with. Whilst the Breitenbach still out on the circuit, I don't think he'll be able to set another lap. But just goes to show my point before, the Breitenbach brothers were fighting for podiums last week, now find themselves 13th and 18th, and that just kind of goes to show, in a way, that the Porsche is much less effective here at Monza than it was back at Imola and May. So I guess that they quite enjoyed their visit to Emilia-Romagna, but as we get to the end of that qualifying session, we can start to get ourselves into race mode. Gorgetto, by the way, lap time good enough for just about the top 10, I believe, in the elite class, which is really interesting because, of course, he will be mixing up with the likes of Dominic Horvath-Sandi and Luke Lucchese, possibly, who, of course, is fighting for that title in the elite class.
Yeah, absolutely right. Gorgetto then is in P8 on the circuit, and the top 12 is dominated by 11 elite drivers. So Fretwell in P2 in the Pro Class, P13. So 4 elite drivers in between P1 and P2 in that Pro division. Before we get going then, if everyone would leave a like on the stream, you guys have always done good at that so far. There's plenty of numbers in with us tonight as well. Plenty of action in the chat, which is always good to see. So please go ahead, leave a like on the stream before we get underway. Only a few cars left to grid, interestingly. It's Leskinen and Fretwell taking a little bit of extra time to just prepare themselves before they grid up, getting ready to go in this one. It'll be Denobriga and Sam Derbyshire who lead us away off the line. The pole man still sitting in the garage as well, getting himself prepared, of course. He only has a certain amount of time, 4 drivers left to grid up before we will be nearly ready to get underway. It's been a cracking season so far. It all comes down to this, though. The drivers will have had this one noted down in the calendar for some time as a big event, and so far 35 drivers with us tonight, so a few more than what we've had over the last couple of weeks. Always good to see more drivers showing up right toward the end of the championship. There's Denobriga in his machine. We'll ride on board with Vinchazevskis as we prepare. The pace car will soon be underway, and we'll have 30 minutes ahead of us here for this first sprint race of the night. Of course, no mandatory stops in this one as always, and that reverse 15 in play, critical for some of those guys in the Pro Class if they're going to try and score some good points in race 2.
Yeah, and that reverse grid always becomes quite a big factor in the second part of the evening, and drivers, can often get pole, run away for the win in race 1, but then can start to struggle to come back through the order when it comes to race 2. So that's going to be on the drivers' minds, I think, quite heavily as they run through this opening race. Of course, you don't want to drop yourself down the order, particularly from near a front-running position, because it's not just going to be affecting your race in race 1, but you will also be impacting it for race 2 as well. You can take that little bit more risk in the second race, but if you're fighting for a championship, there's not really any risk you can take unless you're having to come back from quite a difficult position in the same way that Alex Fretwell does, 93 points behind coming into this race. But this is going to be 30 frantic minutes of racing, and I think we are going to see some drivers try and move their way through the order. How effective that's going to be is yet to be seen, but for Denobriga and for Vinchazevskis, this is the race, I think, that could really decide who gets that final podium position in terms of the championship and who gets that trophy.
Absolutely right then. So we round the final corner. Denobriga will be the man in charge of getting us underway. Interestingly, he did pick up a penalty from last time out around Imola when he overtook a couple of drivers before the start line, but this time it's all over to him. Now we do have a little bit of a delayed start line down toward the run in towards the first chicane. So it'll be a little bit of time before we get underway here, but it's all eyes on the South African 170 left-hand side of the picture in that Acura to get us underway, and we are go for 30 minutes here at Monza, the second last time these drivers will start their race in this season, and De Nobrega has got a great start off the line. Luke Lucchese is moving up the order as well somewhat, and Justin Eloff and Sam Derbyshire doing great battling in behind there, and Justin Eloff has got himself ahead. There is a pile up down there at the back of the chicane. Some of the drivers getting a little bit caught up, but off the line Eloff gains 2 places. Binchesevsky's losing 1. Critically, championship leader Czech Plug has gained 1 place as well. He's right in behind his teammate. We might see those two swap positions in a very short time.
Well, how is this played between the teammates? Because, of course, both have ambitions of their own this evening. And Plug's in a much more comfortable position, doesn't necessarily need as many points coming into this race. In a situation where right now he'd be the champion by the end of this particular race. Wouldn't even have to wait for round number 2 tonight to be confirmed as champion. So Plug's in a decent position. I don't think he'd need to get through. I can't see Mr. Judge is letting him through, that's for sure. But really disappointing for him to drop slightly further down the order and away from Tristan De Nobrega, with Justin Eloff there as well for RDSA. That is not just a rear gunner for Tristan, but also a really good team result as they look to wrap up that team's championship tonight as well, of course. So De Nobrega trying to get away. Will he try and pull Justin Eloff along? Will he just disappear up the road? I'm not too sure. There's the team's and the driver's ambitions that are going to be running through his head right now.
Of course, yeah, it's a great intriguing great intriguing dynamic of this circuit. Of course, the slipstream will be so powerful, and it would serve Eloff quite well if De Nobrega would just hold the pace a little bit, but of course he doesn't want to do that to risk getting himself swallowed up. Sam Derbyshire putting him under all sorts of pressure here, and we're going to see the slipstream in action potentially for the first time here. As we said during qualifying, not the best place to arrive in a Porsche. You'd imagine the Corvette will be slightly stronger in a straight line, and he is getting sucked along nicely. RDSA taking that defensive line on the run down into the first corner. Around the outside will look Sam Derbyshire. Of course, that will become the inside line as we exit turn 2, and it looks as though he's got that move done. Eloff is not going to be able to fight that one back. De Nobrega is now going to have to get his foot down, sadly leave his teammate down there in his wake, but it's going to be 3 wide in a moment between Binchesevsky's, Eloff and Derbyshire as we run down toward the second chicane. William Humphrey sitting pretty in behind, has got a decent gap ahead of Luke van Goortel. Tech Plug has lost that place actually to Luke van Goortel in behind, and Luke Lucchese has gained 1. That's right on board with Luke Lucchese, and he can see his championship rival just 2 cars ahead, but there is quite a big gap between him and, crucially, Quinten Verdonk, the teammate of Plug, is the next man in front of Lucchese who could make his life a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and P9 really isn't where he needs to be right now for Lucchese. Disappointing for Lorenzo Gorgetto, by the way, in the Pro class. So he's dropping down the order. I believe he was leading after the end of lap 1. So disappointing for him to already be down in P8. Not too sure what's happened there. Meanwhile, Justin Eloff dropping down the order. Very likely a slowdown penalty picked up from the exit of Lesmo 2. He's now behind Plug and behind Quinten Verdonk. Very close to being behind Luke Lucchese now. I can't imagine this is planned, although he is still going very slowly indeed. So he's now behind Lucchese, and he seems to be back up to speed again, which is interesting. Lucchese now up to 8th. Maybe he's not up to speed because here comes something called West Sandy. But to go from 2nd to 10th is quite rough, really, for Justin Eloff. He has tumbled down the order, and that's not what he needed at all. Victor van Zeist as well, tumbling down the order in that Pro class. A man in form, really, of late, and as Stephen Codman drops out of the race, he's going to be disappointed to be down in P15. Big moves towards the front of that order in the Pro class, but not enough big moves to for Kalle Leskinen to not be in a championship winning position right now.
Yeah, the 2 Vulcan machines ahead of Lucchese were hampered somewhat by his teammate Slow through the Ascari chicane, so Luke Lucchese has closed that gap down drastically in less than 1 full racing lap here. He's now right on the rear bumper of Quinten Verdonk, who's got the pressure on his shoulders to try and keep the South African in behind him to protect and conserve the position that his teammate finds him in. But after that little wobble, whatever it was by Eloff, I'm not really sure where you pick up a slowdown. Did he take too much out of the right-hander through Lesmo 2? I feel like that's about the only place you can get it. I don't know if you get a slowdown for running wide there, but it must have been a slowdown for Eloff. All the while, it's kind of helped his teammate Lucchese out in some way. Not good for the teams, of course, because the RDSA running 1-2 was the perfect start for what they needed to maintain that championship lead. But if they're aware of Croft's position down there in B-split, he'll be struggling to get himself through the pack, of course, having started right toward the back. So it's gone a little bit better for RDSA over this last lap, but Lucchese needs to try and get himself past Quinta Verdonk ASAP, and then hope that something else happens to Plurg, because at the moment, if Plurg were to finish in P7, Lucchese in P6 for instance, that would not be enough at all for Lucchese to close down that deficit, especially not with William Humphrey currently sitting on the podium. The gap's at the front though, 1.5 seconds, best part of 4 separating the top 3, and then it's close in behind here. Dominic Oversanity bringing up that rear, but with about a 1 second gap outside of the top 8, Hayden Miller and that trailing RDSA car, who goes wide there. Inchus Vichazevsky's gone off the circuit and he's dropped down. Who's taken his place? Is it Luke Van Gortel? Dara, was he riding up in P4? Vichazevsky's off the circuit, and now Luke Lucchese's in a Vulcan sandwich.
Yeah, Luke Van Gortel moving his way seemingly through the order at the moment, but yeah, not looking like it's a nice place to be for Luke Lucchese, particularly when he's fighting Plurg, who's just that little bit further in front as well. Kalle Leskinen's involved in quite a battle behind Lorenzo Gorgetto. Yeah, you can see the damage on the car. He just needs to try and limp that one home again. He only needs to pick up a handful of points in this position to be confirmed as the champion. That's tonight at all, and that's if Alex Fretwell wins both races. Well, Fretwell's doing his side of the bargain, currently winning with Biagio Cutrale right up behind, but Leskinen still needs to get those couple of points to secure it, and I think he'd rather get it done after the first race rather than waiting for what could happen down at turn 1 again for the start of race number 2. So he looks like he's going to try and limp this one home if he can, and he's defending nicely from Joshua Ness, who can't lay a glove on him in towards this second chicane, but still a long way to go in this opening round, and it feels like that we've already had quite a bit of action for, what, 6 minutes?
Absolutely right. Let's go back to the start of the race and see what went on here. We've got Joshua Cohen, who's the first man. Leskinen there late on the brakes. It's always such a slow one. It's just such a slow, clumsy place to slow the car down. Let's watch that again, see if we can pick the bones out of that. It's a little bit higher up the order. A few of the drivers ahead all just bunching up. I don't really think anyone's at fault. It just becomes a little bit of a car park there. The slow concertina really affects some of those drivers who effectively come to a standstill, but no one really making any significant error there, which is good to see. People were a bit concerned about that coming into the session tonight, but all the while it's gone pretty well for the most part. Only one man in the pit lane, and that's Joshua Cohen in the McLaren, out and down the order as Kalle Leskinen moves himself up past Joshua Ness and thinks about a move into the inside of Parabolica on Lorenzo Gorgetto. Cannot make that one stick. Is the Porsche already hampered by that straight line speed? Is it being made even worse by that damage on the front left? We'll have to see how Kalle gets on with these drivers, but he'll know as long as he scores a handful of points, it'll be enough for him to win the championship. Doesn't need to make too many dramatic moves here. Even if Fretwell wins the race, he just needs to bring home points. So fingers crossed that Leskinen keeps it in good shape. And as you rightly said, Darrett, Fretwell is doing his place. However, Gorgetto not doing his, dipping a toe into the gravel. That might allow Leskinen with a good run here as they run down toward the second chicane.
And I think Gorgetto's really going to be disappointed with the fact that he took pole position and he's not really been able to convert it very well at all. Inside line for Kalle Leskinen into the Della Roggia. Can he get it done here? I think we're still seeing Gorgetto hanging around the outside. He'll have the inside line for the second part of the chicane, and that will invite Joshua Ness and Jun Gonzalez into the battle. Lesmo 1 will favour the inside line driver. That is Lorenzo Gorgetto. And with Leskinen out wide, it's going to invite Joshua Ness to find an inside line to Lesmo number 2. Nothing can be done for a moment. He sends it again. In the end, Leskinen will hold on, and it's, if anything, just a bit of a concertina effect now, with Chris Jennings nearly getting himself involved from the back of this battle. He was a couple of seconds back at the start of the lap. He's going to be right on the tail of Jun Gonzalez if these guys keep this up for much longer. This has to be careful, mind you, because Gonzalez was getting very close. That's number 8 of Jakob Krafek, who's the elite driver coming through as well. In a very abrupt reminder that it's not just the pro drivers racing themselves. They've got to fight with some of the elite drivers as well.
Absolutely right there. Let's take a look at how Alex Fretwell took the lead of the race. This was a little bit earlier on lap 2. Here's Fretwell moving into position. Is it contact ahead? Yes, it is. There he is. The VRT machine of Biagio Cutrale off the circuit from contact by another driver. Let's watch that again from Fretwell's perspective the entire time. He's got such a big gap ahead into turn 1. And is it the RDSA car? Yes, it is. It's the RDSA machine. Not quite sure who on the inside of the Ferrari spins him round, allows Fretwell to come through. He'll be rubbing his hands together and saying thank you very much for that one. Nice and easily done for Alex to take the lead of the race. Now, interestingly as well, I'm going to try and find the replay, but Quinten Verdonk has dropped off the back, which has allowed Luke Lucchese to have his championship rival Plurg right in his windscreen. It's not going to be long, but before we see these two coming together, albeit Lucchese's qualifying pace wasn't the best, but we'll have to see how his race pace is, of course. 10 minutes gone now, 20 left to go. Plurg will know that even if Lucchese takes him, it's not going to be enough for him to overturn that margin, at least in this first race. So Plurg just has to look to keep it steady, but it's not exactly what you like to see. He's got his two teammates in behind him, but sadly it doesn't look like they're doing too much at the moment to challenge Lucchese for position.
No, and Lucchese looks pretty safe in P6, but it's not really good enough to be safe in P6 because he needs to be ahead of Plurg here. Plurg comes into this race with a 64-point advantage. It needs to be less than 50 going into race 2 if there's going to be any chance for Luke Lucchese to win this championship, and with Plurg currently extending that, it's looking like it's going to be all over before it really begins for the South African driver. Of course, William Humphrey is still involved, but he's 80 points back. He needs a 30-point swing, and only finishing 2 places ahead is not going to be anywhere near enough for him. This is Luke Lucchese going through the De La Rocha chicane and picking up a position with a car, picking up the off-track, going over the curbs a little bit too harshly, but yeah, not really what Lucchese needs at the moment. He's a little bit, well, actually, no, a lot more pace underneath him if he's going to have any hope of winning this championship, and realistically needs Plurg to have a couple of issues. He can get through on Plurg, but he also has to get through on Van Gortel, Humphrey, and probably Derbyshire as well to keep this championship alive. But at the moment, you just don't see that happening, do you, really?
No, we saw the damage there on the front of Justin Elof's car. That might have been who we saw having contact with the Pro Class leader, Biagio Cutrale. Earlier on up the inside goes Ignas Vinciszewski's not going to defend that one. Is Quinten Verdonk. Of course, these guys need to work together to try and score as many points as they can for the teams. And right toward the front of the field there, you can see William Humphrey and Luc Van Gortel steaming it around the second Lesmo there, trying to stay on the back of this Acura and the Corvette. De Nobrega feeling the need to defend the inside line going into Ascari, and that is the Corvette going to get a good run potentially down toward the Parabolica. We've seen the Corvette with good straight line speed so far in this race, and it might open the door here for Sam Derbyshire to try and take the lead of this race. De Nobrega is going to have to get defensive again going into the Parabolica.
Yeah, let's see Derbyshire outside line. He's got a great run, doesn't he? It's difficult to walk it around the outside of a 180-degree right-hander, but Derbyshire is not going to be the first one to do it tonight. He's going to have to sit and wait behind and see if he can gain on De Nobrega down that main straight. He will have the slipstream, he will be tucked in, and he may have a go, but again, it's not needed to be done right now. We gained a second on the last lap, but he only needs to gain a couple of tenths to make this move stick. Inside line is defended by the South African of De Nobrega. He breaks very early indeed. Derbyshire goes around the outside. There's a little bit of door banging, really. A lot of contact now. Derbyshire tries to keep it up the inside at the second part of the chicane. I'm not too sure whether there was too much space for him to make it there. De Nobrega went around the outside, and it's fair to say that Tristan's come off much work. We're going to see it again here. There's a little bit of contact into the corner, but then De Nobrega, I think, feels like he has the position here. Sam just sticks it up the inside again.
Yeah, very, very difficult there for anyone to really see. It's such a tight corner. You would expect that the car on the inside would naturally drift over, and yeah, we've seen that one before in certain ways, haven't we? We'll watch that one more time from the perspective of Sam Derbyshire on the nose. Let's see. Now that we know what's coming, he got a great dive down the inside, kept it on the circuit, and Tristan just came back across him. Really difficult one for that. I'm not really sure if Tristan could have done much more about that, because it's really, really difficult to slow the car down and open up that corner completely. You've kind of got to hope that your opposing driver doesn't stick it up the inside at the next one, but that will inherit the lead then for Sam Derbyshire. Humphrey and Luc Van Gortel up one place as well, but that will fire up Tristan De Nobrega, who knows that the championship is on the line. What he won't know, perhaps, is what's going on in B-Split. He'll know that at the moment, though, De Nobrega himself and Luke Lucchese are ahead and outscoring the Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers, which is all that is in their control tonight. So at the moment, they're doing what they need to do. Any more mistakes like that, though, and it could quickly be undone.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Sam probably needed to back out there if he could. I'm not sure he realised that he was barely alongside. It's very difficult in the heat of the moment, isn't it, to judge a moment like that. But yeah, he was never going to get out the inside there. And I think you kind of feel for both of them in that scenario because it was inevitable, really, by the time they made their way through the first part of the corner. But it has meant that Denobrica is a little bit further down. Now, Plurg might start to pressure him, but we do have a relatively tight train for the lead. 5 cars, no more than a second between each of them. We're going to have to keep a keen eye on that. Quinton Verdonck's dropped down the order, though. He's behind Thomas Pugh in the only Mustang in that elite class, but he should be able to hold on to it. Oh, there's an attack from behind. Verdonck got it all wrong on the back of, I believe that was Cutrale, as they worked their way through the opening chicane down at the Rettifilio. And that really went very badly wrong for the both of them.
Yeah, very tight, of course. And as he said, the elite driver trying to get himself past both of these, but it's Thomas Pugh and John Breitenbach, the drivers ahead of Biagio Cutrale as well. So Biagio's not fighting for position in class. Fretwell and Danny Phillips a little bit further up the road, of course. If Cutrale's got the pace, he'll feel the need to get by and try and catch up with that gap, but he will have to get past 2 more elite drivers before he's going to be within any contention at scoring more points in his own class. Justin Eloff here, the 2 RDSA cars going side by side, perhaps a switch of position because Justin Eloff has significant damage on the front end, and of course around a circuit with so many straights that will not help as you try and build up your top speed. So through goes Luke King, nicely done, gets himself ahead of Justin Eloff, who started this race so well. Sadly for him, it's come undone quite quickly. In the background we can see Alex Fretwell defending aggressively against Danny Phillips. A few moves there by Alex, from the right to the left, back over to the right and then back over to the left. No harm done though, but Danny will be really wanting to get this one done. That's right on board with the Brit at the moment as he chases down Fretwell, who's conscious of trying to score as many points as he can. Leskinen hasn't gained any more places at the moment. Fretwell just has to be careful not to get taken out and spun around if he's been challenged for the lead of this race. Here comes the McLaren then on the Ferrari, who defends the inside line. Danny doesn't fancy it, backs out for now. He'll look for a good exit here out of turn 2 and try and maybe make a move into the Variante della Roggia.
Yeah, the Della Roggia is a place where we haven't seen too many moves yet so far tonight. Leskinen went for it down the inside, didn't he? But he wasn't able to quite get it done. This is it's a faster chicane in iRacing than I think it can be elsewhere. It means it's that little bit more difficult to make the overtake, and Danny Phillips is not going to be close enough to make the move. Would have to be close, would have to really be alongside, if not slightly ahead into the corner, to have a shout, and will continue in P2, but comfortably so. 5 seconds ahead of the battle involving Biagio Cutrale, who is at the front of this train, mind you. He's got a lot of that happening behind him. Pugh, Verdonck and Hoyland in the elite class trying to come through. Pugh's made his way through up the inside of left mode 1. Verdonck trying to make it 2 in 2 of drivers coming through on the Ferrari. Stephen Hobbs getting close behind Alexander Feuchter as well. A real mix of elite and pro drivers. 3 elite, 3 pros, all finding each other. And sometimes it's almost difficult to judge who you're actually fighting and who you're really fighting. It can be quite difficult with all these different liveries. But as they're running towards the Ascari, there was that little bit of contact, but they've all got away with it. Hoyland just about going to get through and ahead of Verdonck.
Yeah, good pass by Hoyland. I think there was a little bit of contact between the two of them. We might get caught in the trees. I don't want that to happen again, but I do want to see it from the chopper cam. Here we go. Hoyland in behind the VRT machine of Biagio Cutrale, of course. And then I think, did they just make contact? Yes, they do. A little touch as we just went behind that Emirates board there, but Hoyland does get that move done. Maybe half thought about going up the inside of the Ferrari, thought better of it, and Verdonck backs out appropriately. That's Hoyland then up to P14 in class, but this is one hell of a tense battle, and I would not like to be Biagio Cutrale in all of this, trying to hold on to a podium to score some good points in his home race, of course, his second home race of the season. And is Hoyland going to go up the inside? Yes, he is. Will stay behind Thomas Pugh, but he's going to fight it. Is the Ferrari, and it's a great fight around the outside, a little bit wobbly on the exit, and that's going to allow Hoyland the traction. Is he going to shut the door of the Ferrari? No, he's not. He leaves the door open for the Mercedes to come on flying through, and Hoyland is going to have a good line into the next set of corners, but he is going to be stuck on the outside. Let's continue on with this. He's just about got his nose in front, and the Ferrari has to dip back in, and he thought about it. Stays where he is for the time being. Good pass by Hoyland to get himself through, and now he can set off after Thomas Pugh ahead.
Yeah, Pugh maybe having to look in the rearview mirror in the not too distant future, because Matt Hoyland looks like he's got a little bit of pace underneath him. It's clearly not enough to keep him, in contention for maybe a race win, but he does look relatively fast in the only Mercedes in that elite class. Denobriga trying to make a move down in towards Parabolica. He's going to get to the inside line and brake a little bit later. Get that move done. Textbook stuff, really, from Tristan Denobriga, trying to make up the places that he, of course, lost earlier on in the contact with Sam Derbyshire. He's ahead of Luke Van Gorten now into the top 3. Got a little bit of work to do to catch up to William Humphrey, but he's got 10 minutes to do it. He's only 2 seconds behind the race leader. Could we see a restart of that battle for the race lead? I don't think we can rule it out, particularly if Humphrey gains on Derbyshire. He gained on the last lap, but out of the top 3, Denobriga was the fastest, and if he can continue to gain, he might be on the back of those two by the end of the race.
So the Mustang just in shot there, Hoyland chasing him down. That's P15. That is reverse pole position for race 2. Critical places here in this race, and Hoyland is within a second. And as we said, he's in one of the more favourable machines in a straight line, of course, setup dependent, but Hoyland will be keen, absolutely, to try and get himself not only more positions in class, but more importantly, a position on the front row of the grid. I believe the last time Hoyland was on the front row was in the Audi back around Mugello, which was right toward the start of this championship. Sort of unexpectedly took that place toward the end of the race and led us away nicely. Swiftly moved on from the Audi, of course, and hopped between a couple of different machines throughout this season. But if he can get himself back on pole position for the final race of the season, that would be quite comedic, actually, given the season that Hoyland's had so far this season. To start on pole for race 2 would be a nice summary and a nice way to end for the Mercedes driver, who'll definitely be looking to bounce back going into season 9, of course. So we'll keep tabs on how Hoyland gets on in that position, of course. The train in behind him trails all the way down to Leskinen in P22 in the order. Closer toward the front, though, William Humphrey mounting a challenge on Sam Derbyshire, similarly to what Derbyshire did to Denobriga just a handful of laps ago. Is it going to be Humphrey's turn in that slightly less favourable Porsche in a straight line? But when it comes to the braking zones, I think Humphrey has won over on Sam Derbyshire. Is it going to be Humphrey's chance to win another race? He did it last time for the first time since the opening round, and he could be about to do it again here. 8 minutes to go. Humphrey's in prime position for a race victory.
Yeah, it definitely looks like he's going to have a go at the very, very least. Sam Derbyshire doesn't look the strongest out of those top 3. And if they start battling, Denobriga's going to arrive into the party as well and give his hand to possibly putting in an attempt for the race win once again. Don't get out Luke Van Gorten either. He's still there. He was overtaken by Denobriga. We saw it quite easily into Parabolica, but he's not let Denobriga go. And we could see a 4-car battle very easily for the race lead if these two do start battling. And you can see how much nicer of a line that is from William Humphrey. Derbyshire climbing on the curbs, but in all of the wrong ways. Humphrey with a much smoother line through the chicane, enabling him maybe just to gain a tenth or two that gives him a chance at maybe making a move into Ascari. Feels like he's going to be that little bit too far back, but he's only 3/10 away, and he will be nearly pushing Derbyshire by the time they get into that fast left-right-left combination.
Yeah, you could see the Porsche on display there over the curves. That is its strong suit around here, and Humphrey is putting that on display in a top style here over the next set of curves, bouncing as the left tyres come off the circuit, back down through the left, as you said, Dara, and out. Now down toward the Parabolica. Derbyshire under masses of pressure here. Humphrey doesn't have to push too much here. You can sit in the slipstream and try and make this move happen in a few laps' time. Moving out of it to find his braking point, moves back in behind the Corvette, trying to pick his mark, keeping it tight in toward the right-hand side of the circuit before you let it drift back out wide to keep up the minimum speeds and get back on the power before the long run out of turn 11 down toward turn 1. Humphrey putting on the wiper blades there, getting a bit of dust off of his windscreen, but I think Derbyshire knows that Humphrey has got him in the slow stuff, but has he got enough in a straight line to get past the Corvette? A good battle which will continue for the next 6.5 minutes. And how long is it going to take Humphrey to put on a move? You can see the closing distance as they approach the braking zones is drastic in favour of that Porsche, but trouble is for him, he needs it in the straight line in order to get a good move. Unless he gets a strong exit, which is very, very possible. Sam Derbyshire could just be controlling the pace at the moment though, and he might start putting the afterburners on in a few minutes' time.
I wouldn't necessarily say, though, that sitting 3/10 ahead of somebody is controlling the pace. I think he is feeling the heat, to be honest, from William Humphrey. But you're right, that Porsche not really ideal in the straight line, or in a straight line, but he does have the advantage in the corners. Begs the question, does he have to send it somewhere to try and make the move stick? It's definitely something that he's going to have to think about as the time ticks down. Still 5.5 minutes or so. We should have a minimum of 3 more laps. In fact, it will be 3 more laps come the end of this one. So more than enough time for Humphrey to line up this move. The frustration with Denobriger is he hasn't really been able to close in enough to get himself into contention. He's just sitting off the second gap away from William Humphrey. And as William, he isn't really battling with Derbyshire just yet. He's not helping, or he's not, Denobriger, I should say, is not being helped in that regard either. So still, lots to be decided, but 3 laps for it all to shake out. Is Humphrey's chance going to be into turn 1? It could very possibly be, but he's just about that 3/10 away once again. Could try and focus on his line through Barabolica to try and maximise it, but he's lost, not a 10.5, nearly 2/10 through there.
Let's not count Denobriger out of this as well, of course. Fastest man in qualifying, arguably the fastest man what would have been during the race if it wasn't for that earlier contact. He's slowly closing the gap on Humphrey. Not quite enough, still 1.3 seconds off the back of it, but he is setting pretty quick lap times, about a 10th quicker than Humphrey on that prior lap. And we can see Humphrey not quite as aggressive as he was at the start of the last lap. So I certainly would not be counting the South African driver out of this one for the time being. It's heating up down here. That's Justin Eloff getting in the way somewhat of Fretwell in his defence of Danny Phillips, and we know that the driver of Danny Phillips will not be wanting to sit in behind that Ferrari for much longer. He's been putting pressure on for a number of laps now, and the time is ticking. Danny will fancy his chances, absolutely, and it could be an opportunity now as Fretwell looks to maybe be getting a little bit hampered by that Porsche ahead. If he does have to make a move, then Phillips could line up a good run on the exit perhaps and try and get that one done. Again, the Ferrari and Fretwell will know that this is a great place to try and get a race victory under your belt, of course. Something that Fretwell has only done on one occasion so far this season. It'll be a great way for him to round out the championship, but Danny Phillips is going to be there all the way to the line. Then we've got some great battles on the lead for both of our classes, and let's not forget that, in fact, let's not forget, it's happened already. Matt Hoyland has got himself up into that pole position, actually. Thomas Pugh has dropped behind Quinton Verdonk at some point as well. Perhaps a mistake on Pugh's own behalf, but Hoyland then sitting comfortable at the moment within half a second, actually. 2 drivers within a second behind him, so I wouldn't say too comfortably, but Hoyland in the position that he wants to be in the final 3 minutes of this one.
Yeah, and that's really what he wants to be doing now, is getting himself, or keeping himself ahead of Quinton Verdonk. That is going to be very harshly for battle in the closing lap or two, because Verdonk knows the importance of finishing in 15th and 16th, you know, far more important than 7th and 8th. Yeah, 15th and 16th, huge difference in terms of what it means for the drivers, but Verdonk not really able to lay much of a glove on him for the time being. But we're getting into a range where we could have Matt Hoyland in a Mercedes leading race number 2, and Matt Simo in a Mercedes at the back of race number 2, with there only being 3 of them, or 4 of them on the track, I should say. Horvath Sandy having to defend from Miller and King. He's a decent result, though, to finish in the top 8 once again, and he'll have a good starting position for race number 2. It's just been a shame for Justin Eloff that he hasn't been able to even overtake his teammate Luke King, of course, after picking up that off track in the very early stages of the race. RDSA were in a fantastic position. What were they? 1, 2, I think 5 and 9, but they're now down in 3, 7, 10 and 11. Not really what they needed, particularly after the contact between Denobriger and Derbyshire.
Absolutely right then. So we're closing toward the end of this one, and we're still riding on board with the leaders in the Pro class. Let's switch back over and see things in class order, of course. Derbyshire doing well to maintain that gap to Humphrey. As we said, you were probably right, Dara, not exactly controlling the pace, but he's doing enough to stay in front. Humphrey so far doesn't have a response to try and get through. I think you also might have been right to say that he might have to send it at some point if he wants to get that move done, force the issue a little bit and try and muscle his way through. You could argue that's what Derbyshire did to try and take the lead of the race. In fact, that's what he did to take the lead of the race. Is Humphrey going to follow that suit? We'll have to wait and see. Denobriger not gaining on them at all, actually. Dropping off the back now, losing a bit of pace as Sam Derbyshire goes quickest of his own personal times in this race so far, sharing that 10th of a second with Humphrey in behind. So matching pace at the moment are the 2 leaders here, and Danny Phillips within 0.3 of a second in behind Alex Fretwell, and perhaps after this one it will be white flag. So 2 laps to go in this opening race. It's now or never for Humphrey and for Danny Phillips.
I think it's going to be close. Phillips looking for the outside line, not going to be able to quite get that one done. I do actually think this could be the final lap, actually, with there only being 30 seconds on the clock and Derbyshire not yet being in the final sector, I do believe, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Verdonk not able to make his way through on Matt Hoyle, and that is that crucial position for P15, that if this is the last lap, Verdonk's chances really are running out now to make this one stick. Thomas Pugh could pick up the pieces if it all goes wrong for those two as well, as Fretwell bouncing over the curves of the De La Rocha, just about going to keep ahead of Danny Phillips. But yeah, as they make their way through the Lesmos, I think the checkered flag's about to fly out. Derbyshire's not yet got to the line yet, but he's just about going to hold on, it seems.
Yeah, you're right. This is the final lap. Derbyshire's just about coming out of Ascari, I believe, at the moment, making his way down toward the Parabolica. So we'll ride on with him and Humphrey to see if anything's given there. But Fretwell may just be able to hang on to this. If Phillips doesn't fancy a move here, then he's probably not going to get another opportunity then. Let's ride on board with Sam Derbyshire as he rounds the final corner. It was a good attempt by Humphrey, but sadly for him, it wasn't able to be converted. And as we cross over the line, it's a victory once again for the DDK racing drivers. Sam Derbyshire leads Humphrey across the line. Denobrica will be satisfied enough with the points in P3, but he will have hoped for more come earlier in this race. And that looks like a good exit, and he's got the closer line. This is going to be side-by-side action between these two drivers. Fretwell just about has the advantage. Phillips has the shorter run toward the line. Who got it in the end? I think it's 2 1/1000ths of a second, no, 2/10ths of a second between Fretwell and Phillips. Fretwell takes that lead, takes the win here in Monza. Cracking finish there between two drivers who looked like they were at it for the final few minutes there.
Yeah, but for Alex Fretwell, a win was what he needed to do, but it's not going to stop Kalle Leskinen from taking the title. P6 is more than enough for him to be able to be crowned the champion. He can go into that final race of the season with no real pressure on his back because he's already got it wrapped up. Mind you, though, if Fretwell can back up his win with another one in race 2, he will have closed that gap quite significantly, probably to under 50 points by the end of the night, but it doesn't really matter. Leskinen has had that advantage all season long, and the flash of the light shows that he is the champion. And full credit to him for doing so. He's been at the top all season long, and in the number one, well, maybe the celebration's in there. I
that
don't know
might be where the party
there.
is. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah. That's cracking though. That's absolutely right. So I think, yeah, Leskinen was always one to watch. We saw his very, very strong performance. I remember back around the Red Bull Ring pre-season 10 or 11 weeks ago, he was right up there inside the top 5 in the field. Looked as though he would be a competitive driver, and that's exactly how it turned out to be, of course. Now, it wasn't the same to be said in the end. You know, that the gaps did close right toward the end of the championship with the likes of Noah Brown and Fretwell and Jennings being there or thereabouts, of course. Robin has dropped right down the order, missing the last 3 weeks' worth of racing, of course. But it wasn't so easy for Leskinen, but he'll know, and as we saw, he does know that he has won this championship. So is he going to take it easy in race 2, or is he going to be a little bit more drastic to try and take up some places? He'll be disappointed, actually, that he missed out on that on their position on the podium, but he won't care because he's won the championship. So we'll see how he gets on in this race. Of course, 5 minutes to go before we get underway for the final event of the season, and first we'll bring you the results, starting as always with the Elite Division. So Sam Derbyshire took the checkered flag first, ahead of William Humphrey by just 7/10 here at Monza. So a smashing result by Derbyshire, who took the lead of the race in controversial style, but held on to it in the end, ahead of his fellow Briton William Humphrey. Tristan Denobriga qualified on pole, led the race for quite some time, but sadly for him, P3 will have to be what he settles for in the end. I'm sure that will be enough points to help the RDSA drivers in their fight for the title. It won't be enough, though, for Denobriga to try and get past Humphrey to get himself inside the top 3 in the championship standings. Luc van Gortel had a good run out. He finished in a very strong P4 ahead of championship leader Tjek Plurg, crucially finishing ahead of his teammate. 2 very, very strong points positions for the Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers. It'll be interesting actually what are the net points between a third and a seventh for the RDSA drivers, and then a fifth and a sixth for the Vulcan Motorsports drivers, given the fact that there were only, I think it was 17 points separating those drivers at the start of this session. Then Luke Lucchese in 7th ahead of Dominic Horvath-Sanity in P8. It's Hayden Miller scoring some more strong points in P9. The two second RDSA cars, Luke King and Justin Eloff inside P10 and P11. It's John Brayton back inside the top 12, finishing ahead of Matt Hoyland and Quinton Verdonk, who started right toward the front of the order. Sadly for him, couldn't hold on to that in the end. And then it's Thomas Pugh, Jakob Krafek and Paul Caldershaw who finished just one lap down. So therefore, the majority of that field will score points.
Over then in the Pro class, it was Alex Fretwell who won it by 18 thousandths of a second, according to the time page. Barely ninth, the closest finish we've had all season for sure in the end, and he's pretty much wrapped up that P2 in the championship. But of course, the P1 has just about disappeared. Shame for Danny Phillips, ready to be so close, but yet so far. He will start in the lead of this class for race number 2. Cutrale and Gorgetto, they started second and third, but slipped down the order. Gorgetto, though, recovered well, really, after dropping down the order early on to get one of his best finishes of the season in P4. Stephen Hobbs was P5 ahead of champion now, Kalle Leskinen. He finished in 6th. He was the lead Porsche, but he has now confirmed that he has wrapped up the title. Joshua Ness and Jun Gonzalez, 7th and 8th, ahead of Lawrence van der Voorten and Chris Jennings inside the top 10. It was Victor van Zijs, the man on form, who was 11th ahead of Robin Elbran and Alexander Feuchter, with Wayne Basson, the only other driver, on the lead lap. Stephen Cobham was a lap down before 3 drivers who didn't see the checkered flag: Matt Simo, Marcel Breitenbach and Joshua Cowan. But a good day for Kalaskin, a decent day for Alex Fretwell. He can't win the championship, but you can't argue with a win, can you?
No, you absolutely cannot then. So a quick look at the order. I believe that, well, you score 57 points for the RDSA drivers, and it was 63 points for the Vulcan drivers. So that's a net difference of 6 points, of course. So 11 points the difference between the leaders at the front end of the championship, not accounting, of course, for the Axis team over in Split B, but they were, of course, 13 points off the back of the Vulcan drivers coming into it tonight. So the deficit has been reduced a little bit, not too much, but I'm sure that if they're aware, I'm sure they're doing the maths during the warm-up. 11 points is what we're looking at between the RDSA leading pair and the Vulcan Motorsports leading pair coming into this final race, which may well determine the result of the team's championship, dependent, of course, on where the Axis drivers finish in Split B.
Yeah, and that could be a really interesting thread to watch over the course of the last 30 minutes, particularly with championships wrapped up at this stage. And yeah, it'll be definitely interesting to see who can wrap up that team's championship. Plug, of course, with a fantastic run today, wrapping up the title as well. So it's been a not a useful opening race, decisive opening race, but we haven't decided everything, and championships last until the checkered flag every single season, and I think that team's championship's going to go down right to the last second, isn't it?
It is, and I've just realised what I just said is completely wrong. It was actually, I'd done RDSA by minus 10 points to what they'd actually scored, so they have gained actually on the Vulcan drivers going into this one, so that margin will extend to 21 points instead of 11. So a little bit of a job to do for the Vulcan drivers, but we'll still keep tabs on how they are getting on, and we're about to get underway for the start of race 2. Matt Hoyland responsible for leading the way at the sharp end of the field, something that I said earlier he hasn't done for quite some time, and we're about to get underway. The safety car will lead us through Ascari, and we'll be underway, Darren, for the final time this season. Can you believe it?
I know, I feel like these GT3 seasons go in a flash, really. They're only a couple of months long, particularly as we've had the European GT Championship on a Sunday night over the last 2 months now. We're only really halfway through the season. These championships feel like they disappear in a heartbeat, but we have had some great battles all season long, and so many drivers that have been near the forefront, not just in Split A, but Split B, of course, with Paul Walsh still on the ESR YouTube channel. But then there's been so many fantastic drivers and so much engagement over the season. We've seen so many fantastic moments as well. It's a shame we've only got 30 more minutes of it left, really, and I know it's going to be the last 30 minutes that you watch, Joe, if we get back in the car.
Well, it is actually. Well, yes and no. I'm here for the opening couple of rounds, but then, yes, I will be back in the car for most of the championship next season, away abroad for a few weeks, and then I'll come back and I'll get myself in the rig to compete in the Pro Class. It'll be next season then. So it's over to Matt Hoyland for the last time this season. We'll get underway for a race event. As you rightly said, Dara, it's been a great season. There's been some difficult conditions around some difficult circuits for these drivers to manage, but for the most part, they've all done it very, very well then. So over to you for the final time, Dara, as Mr. Matt Hoyland rounds out his season in an interesting style. I don't think you'll have thought that he would have been on pole before he even intended to race tonight, but here he is, leading the pack down toward the first corner.
And he's going to have a tough time. Of course, we know how tricky it is here at Turn 1 at Monza, just to make sure that everybody stays behind him. It doesn't drive into the back of you, though. 30 minutes on the clock, and we are racing for the final time this season here at Monza. Drivers already trying to duck out of line, I think, in the background. That could have been Luke Van Gortel going for a move onto the grass on the inside. Actually, I think it's Dominic Horvath-Sandy. Oh, there's contact, though, with Luke King as they run in towards the opening turn. Hoyland's through just about. Horvath-Sandy's had to take to the escape road. Everybody just about making their way through. Of course, very slow towards the back of the order, but no one having to stop. Horvath-Sandy is going to join back in the order and have to try and give back those positions. Leskinen's dropping down the order. Good news for him that he completed the championship already, because he wouldn't have wanted to sit on this result if he's down in P16. Miller is through as well as he tries to get through on John Brightback. Earloff is up to P2. Really, really frantic start, but for Plug, he's still where he is, and they're 2 by 2 in towards the De La Rocha chicane. A little bit of contact in behind between the teammates. Horvath-Sandy's had a really difficult opening half of the lap.
Yeah, Verdonk, Kutrale and Leskinen, crucially actually, all down over 10 places at the start. So Leskinen will be overjoyed that he's got the championship wrapped up already, because that would not be what you want to see. And that's Vinciszewski's been put sideways, but then corrected again by William Humphrey, who gets himself going again. But that's left a huge gaggle of cars fighting over the same space on the circuit here as we run down toward the Ascari chicane for the first time in this session. Hoyland leads well. Eloff has made up 1 place ahead of John Breitenbach. Phillips and Fretwell still side by side, but they've swapped positions, of course, from the finishing order in race 1. Phillips then, therefore, leading Fretwell, and it's the likes of Derbyshire, Humphrey and Luke Van Gortel who were up a handful of places at the start. One of the Breitenbachs off on the right-hand side at the exit of the chicane there in toward the background, all hitting up in this mid-pack there. Vinciszewski's will be pleased that he managed to keep that one pointing in the right direction. Toward the front, Hoyland leading well against Eloff and John Breitenbach.
Yeah, really important, I think, for Hoyland to get away in the way that he did, but he's not really safe, is he? Justin Eloff is right there, and I think looking to almost avenge his difficult start for race number 1, which dropped him down the order from a very promising position. But Hoyland still holding on for the time being. How long can he do so, though? Because it looks like Eloff has a bit more pace right now. He's taken 2 tenths as they made their way through the Rettifilio. He may even have to go into the De La Rocha. He's only just about 2 car lengths back. Maybe a little bit too far back to have a move, but he's going to look for an inside line. I think it's better of it in the end and will stay there, but still, no one getting away at the front. Hoyland, it is fair to say, not the fastest driver on the racetrack right now. Eloff maybe feels like he has a bit more pace. Not able to use it just yet. Couldn't get it done at Lesmo.
There was a little bit of a bunch up going into turn 1 again, which is why we cut away from this pack. A few changes in the order in the Pro Class from around P4 down to P9. It's Golgetto in P3, leading a cluster of 6 of those cars down to Robin Noel Brown inside the top 23 in the order then. So just to summarise that, Kutrale, Leskinen, Verdonk and Krafek down the most positions out of anyone. Vinciszewski's is down a handful of places. William Humphrey still just about ahead of him, and there goes Hoyland off the side of your picture. I missed that one looking at the timing tower, but off he goes and allows Justin Eloff to claim the space at the front of the order. Hoyland will be kicking himself because he could only hold on to the race lead for 1.5 laps here, and that has allowed John Breitenbach to find himself in a great place to challenge Eloff. It's 2 Porsches leading this one, followed by the Mercedes, of course, of Matt Hoyland, and there's still drama all the way up and down the circuit. I think we're going to see a lot of guys going side by side into turn 1, potentially as well the 2 leaders here, the 192 and the 172, as Eloff cuts over across Breitenbach and holds that position going into turn 1. And here comes Luke King up the inside of Alex Fretwell, gets that one done nicely.
Yeah, and Fretwell trying to get him, keep himself in contention for a second race win of the evening. Luke King, though, just about going to work his way through. Very close near the front of the field, though, isn't it? In the elite class, that big gap between Fretwell and Gorgetto is back once again that we saw from the back end of race number 1. All about sanity after that crazy opening half of a lap for him is down in P11, fighting with William Humphrey of all people for P10. Humphrey, oh, he had the inside line. Oh, there's contact, there's huge contact. Well, Sanity's off the road. Not too sure how that's happened. I think we'd have to see an onboard, but it almost seemed that Horvath Sanity started turning in a little bit early and across the nose of William Humphrey. Don't really know where William was going to be expected to go. We'll have to maybe avoid the
We'll get a different one up. We'll get a different one up.
But yeah, going into the corner.
It's difficult
to really see from that angle. I think we'd have to see the William and onboard actually.
Yeah, on that one. There we go. Oh, not that one. This one. Here we go. Oh, it's very tricky. It doesn't really look like William's got any right steering lock on there. If I can do that a little bit quicker, then we'll see it. Here we go. Much better. Into the, oh, it looks like Horvath just kind of comes out of nowhere and comes across ever so slightly there. Difficult one, but I don't think that one will fall on Humphrey. Horvath has got himself going again, and that little issue has caused Fretwell there, side by side with Hayden Miller. Not a battle in class. Fretwell has to be careful though, because Danny Phillips is not that far up the road, and the pressure that Danny gave Alex a little bit earlier on, I'm sure Alex will fancy giving him that back as well. 5 minutes gone already in this one, under pressure by a handful of elite drivers is the Pro Division driver at the moment in this cluster of 5 or 6 cars coming into the first couple of corners. Tech Plug in P11, Luke Lucchese and Tristan Dobriga ahead of all of the Vulcan Motorsports Gold drivers. In fact, 4 of the RDSA cars currently leading ahead of all of the Vulcan drivers, so massive advantage to RDSA. It'll be difficult to see them dropping this one from this position.
Yeah, ooh, inside line, contact, Van Gordon's around, Lucchese's around, and just as you said that, yeah, I think it was a very ambitious move from Luke Van Gordon if he was going to get that one done. And the W's taken out the C there, and yeah, Luke Lucchese is going to turn back to pit lane. I think that's him done. For this race and probably for this, well, and yeah, for the season as well. It's not been a great back end of the season, and it's fair to say he's kind of been done over somewhat by Luke Van Gortel. Their very, very late move wasn't ever going to work out, and they're both down. It promotes others, though. It promotes William Humphrey up to the top 8. It promotes Hayden Miller to the top 5 as well. And the Scotsman's looking to try and close in on Alof and Luke King at the moment. I'll have to see it again. But it did seem very late back from the angle we had. Wasn't much of an overlap, and
Lucchese even left the room, but yeah, once you commit to the apex like that, very difficult to keep that one out of the order. And Denobliga has had an issue slightly. He's fallen down a few places there, I think. Let me see if I can see what's gone on with Denobliga. Has had an incident on the timing sheet as well. Let's see, a little bit of a wobble. There he goes, and he's round, so I did speak absolutely too soon. 2 of the leading oh dear me, reverses back across the circuit, nothing giving. Pew and one of the VRT Ferraris having to get out of way of that one, but I was confident that RDSA would remain in those strong positions, and now it's over to Luke King and Justin Eloff, currently in P3 and P4, to score the points for RDSA. Now, if you had to put your money somewhere, you'd back Lucchese and Denobliga, but in this case, you're going to have to go for the 2 drivers who've been bringing up the rear for RDSA so far this season. Still in such a competitive place inside the Elite Championship, of course. Nothing to shake your head at. P7 and P9 for King and Eloff respectively, but pressure on these 2 drivers, of course, with Denobliga and Lucchese much more used to riding high toward the top of the standings. You'd feel like they would feel the pressure a little bit less as the Ferrari looks to make a move again on the MJK driver. It would have been similar this time to his teammate. But yeah, let's see how the RDSA drivers get on toward the front. We'll be keeping tabs on King and Eloff for the rest of this race. It's not looking too good for Plug and Vinchezewski's though, because they're still down in P12 and P13, 9 and 10 in class, so they've got some work to do if they want to try and overcome and score some good points.
Yeah, 20 minutes to do so though, more than enough time to get some of these moves completed, but if some of these gaps start to eke out now, then you're going to feel like it's going to be a bit too much to ask. to try and find your way through in the final 5-10 minutes of the race, if those gaps are something like 2-3 seconds. I mean, we saw towards the end of race number 1, didn't we, with Tristan de Nobrega after that contact with Sam Derbyshire, that he was a little bit quicker, but not really able to close on William Humphrey, and Humphrey as well, not able to make a move despite being less than half a second behind the race leader for quite some time. So yeah, I think you've really got to have a lot of hope and a lot of ambition to make moves now to give yourself a chance later on in the race, and that's what Quinton Verdonk is doing. You can see that gap up with Dominic Rivas. I know he's up to 3.5 seconds, but he's stuck behind Lorenzo Borghetto and can't really afford to be here for much longer.
No, we absolutely cannot. There's still, I'm surprised actually at how many close battles we have, of course. Only 10 minutes into this one, but we've got so many up and down the order in some pretty important positions actually. Lorenzo Borghetto here going side by side with Ignas Vinchizevskis, of course, one of the fastest men on the circuit, and of course Lorenzo on the inside line dips in behind the Acura, which is probably the sensible thing to do then. Vinchizevskis now has the Mustang of Thomas Pugh ahead, who is fighting for points in his class. So this is where we'll see Vinchizevskis really get the hammer down. Might start to be a little bit aggressive as they try to chase down the two RDSA drivers, hoping that they have some sort of coming together. Now Kalle Leskinen has had another incident, so he's down in P16 in class, still scoring points. The championship's won, but not the way that a champion would like to end the season by any stretch of the imagination. And let's have a look at this man, Danny Phillips, currently 3rd overall, leading his class. You can see Matt Hoyland has retaken the place at the sharp end of the stick, and I don't recall, Dara, was it Justin Eloff who took the lead over Hoyland earlier on? Whoever it was has lost it now, because John Breitenbach leads the way and carries the field across the start-finish line now.
Yeah, and all of me talking about Breitenbach not necessarily being on it as much as he was last week is out of the window. Oh no, that's de Nobrega off the road, down between Ascari and Parabolica. I do not know how there's contact down there. Oh, it started well before that. That's Stephen Codman involved, and oh my goodness me. Well, we've gone aerial in the final race. That was the disco ball we were waiting for. It was Stephen Codman down the back straight.
Let's watch him take off.
Oh
dear.
Cobb, sorry.
Yeah, well that is liftoff for sure, and let's ride on board if we can get him with de Nobrega to see what he saw. A bit of smoke on the grass, and then, yeah, I mean, there was no caution shown there by Tristan at all to come off the power. Sadly, you can see the smoke ahead, guns it over the grass, and then it's just never going to end well. Has the head been lost by Lucchesi and de Nobrega here toward the end of the season? The championship's off in the drivers, the teams was on, but sadly for the pair of them in the pit lane, leaving the work over to their two other teammates, of course, King and Eloff. Eloff is still there. I thought I'd missed him there, just scraped over him. That's one hell of an impact. Avoidable, but oh, and there's more as the Vulcan driver is off. That is, I believe, going into the yes, that is Verdonk going at Lesmo 1 then. Was he turned around there by Hover Sanity? I'm not quite sure, but that's again one of our championship challenges off and round the order. So it's now pretty much all over to Plurg and Vinchizevskis to bring home the points. Eloff and King still riding in P3 and P4 in class, and Fretwell up the inside, sorry, around the outside, and up the inside goes Sam Derbyshire to take that place off the pro class driver currently in P2.
Yeah, and lucky really for RDSA, the two drivers in this race that are doing that much better are still running towards the front of the field. Derbyshire under pressure from Alex Fretwell, who's trying to keep tabs with Danny Phillips, who is off up the road now, not really going to be troubled. I think there's 3 or even 4 elite cars between them right now. In fact, it is 4. But Danny Phillips doing a very good job right now. You can just about see him in the foreground there, ahead of Luke King and Justin Eloff. He's between Hoyland and King. And doing a very stellar job for the time being. Joshua Cohen is getting to the inside now as he runs his way in towards the Retafilio chicane. Not going to be able to make any kind of move. I'm not too sure who that is actually that he was battling. I think it could
Sanity.
be... Oh, it is Sanity, right, okay. But of course, out of class. So even though it was a change of position overall, there wasn't a change in position in terms of any kind of points finishes.
Oh, and that front of Hover Sanity's... I'm not even sure what it is, and it's an Acura. I knew it was an Acura, but you couldn't really tell from that perspective. The front bumper completely wiped out, and that will really make the life easier for the Y-Axis Sim Sports driver of Joshua Cohen in his pursuit of this position. Now, Danny Phillips finds himself in a very, very favourable position, riding inside the top 3 in the order. Still got eyes on the overall race lead. He's got 4 elite drivers in between him and Fretwell, who's a little bit further down the order. You can see that red Ferrari just in the back of your picture being chased by William Humphrey. So one mistake could be costly because they're still there or thereabouts, but I'm sure that Danny will be very satisfied with this one if he can round out a podium, round out a win at the end of the season. Probably get him into the interview booth to have a word with us if he can convert this one. But he's got the Hungry King right in behind him. He's not going to want to get in his way, because when you know that someone is fighting for a team's championship, you don't want it to make it too difficult for them. Is he going to think about a move? Yes, he is. Up the inside and right on cue. Danny does not make that one harder than it had to be, and that is Luke King up into the top 3. He might be able to now set off after Matt Hoyland.
Yeah, let's wait and see whether he actually can get this one done. Hoyland, of course, still doing a very good job to be inside the top 2 after the first half of a race. And if anything, he's been gaining to the back and can break back again in the last couple of laps. That gap was outside of a second, now down to about 0.6 of a second, so definitely a competitive nature to that battle down there. Joshua Cohen just now back ahead of Dominic Horvath. Sanadi, who is of course a mile behind Plurg, the top 10 very much away from the rest in that elite class. It's kind of the top 10 and then those who've been affected by the collisions. Oh, goodness me, Wayne Basson could get involved as well as Horvath Sandy looks to the outside line, where of course he came into contact with William Humphrey earlier on. Joshua Cohen is blinking all over the place. Nobody knows where he is, and that's not going to be helping out the drivers behind him as they might go side by side through race mode 1 once again. It's been really, fast and furious this second race. Drivers looking for moves everywhere. They know it's the end of the season, and they're just giving it everything that they can.
Jack Plurg looking for a move here on Thomas Pugh. Ahead, of course, Vinchizevsky's is just 1 place further up the road. And interestingly, if we... Oh, a little bit of a wobble there by Plurg. Well held, safe hands by the Dutchman. But sadly for him, a few drivers will be let through in that order. I was going to say, let's take a look at how the standings look overall, because you can see the gap from 1st to 7th, really not an awful lot at all. Danny Phillips, the only driver without a car in front of him within a second, but then he's got Miller, Eloff and Derbyshire basically within a second of him as well. So the train from 1st all the way down to 7th or 8th, more or less, bumper to bumper, and Matt Hoyland would have thought that he'd lost the lead of the race and he might not have been able to recover it on the second lap of this one. But just as we cross over the half race distance, Hoyland well now back into contention to win this one. And with no disrespect to Breitenbach, Hoyland will be pleased that he doesn't have to overtake the likes of Humphrey, Plurg, Lucchesi, but that wasn't the best way to do it. Contact front to rear Mercedes on the Porsche. But yes, Hoyland will be pleased that he doesn't have one of the championship leaders to battle, and he can battle someone who is perhaps a little bit more around his pace, or at least someone that Hoyland will see as a fair opponent then. And it'll be interesting how the Mercedes gets on against this Porsche. Of course, we saw a similar one between Humphrey and Derbyshire in race 1. We've got another one on our hands here, but it went pretty bad by Hoyland at the start of the race, and all of a sudden he finds himself in another great position. But he's got to be careful because Luke King is slowly gaining on these guys in the background, doing the job for his team, which is exactly what you like to see. When called upon, it matters, and at the moment Luke King is doing exactly what he needs to do.
And to put himself in the top 3 as well in this kind of competitive grid is fantastic. And to have the buffer with Danny Phillips behind, well, for how long is that going to last? We'll have to wait and see. But for the time being, at least, that's going to help him out. Outside line for Hayden Miller, not going to be able to get it done through there. The Scotsman, he may have a bit of an up and under, though, through Parabolica, and will get that position on the exit of the corner. Now, will he keep it down the main straight? We'll wait and find out. We've got Justin Eloff and Sam Derbyshire in behind in this as well. The top 7 really covered by about a full second and a half here. There's barely anything between them. Hayden Miller now being the cork in the bottle, a full second between himself and Luke King. Outside line maybe. Oh, a lift off there from Danny Phillips. He lets 1 through, 2 through, now the 3rd. Sam Derbyshire gets to the inside. He won race 1. He's looking to get himself in the top 5 for race 2. And now the top 6 are all elite drivers and all very close together. Breitenbach, Hoyland and King are going to have to be looking over their shoulders with 11 minutes to go.
That looked like a very good move by Sam Derbyshire from what I saw there. It looked as like he'd resided to sitting in behind the car in front of him on the left-hand side, and then at the last second jinked and got himself through and almost followed Justin Eloff as he made a pass up the inside into turn 1. Great opportunism by Sam Derbyshire there to get himself into the top 6. Danny Phillips will be pleased that he's managed to survive that one. Still leads the race. However, look where Alex Fretwell is, coming through the second of the Lesmos now, and he can see his class rival just ahead there, separated by William Humphrey. So Fretwell needs to get his foot down now as we approach the final 10 minutes if he wants to convert what will be some cracking points for the RLH team tonight, which could help them as well, of course, in the team's championship. Look at the gap from 1st to 9th, everybody within a second of each other. A great way to round out the season in what is dramatic style. We can see Brayton back leading all the way down to Fretwell in 9th. I don't think, Dara, we've seen this kind of battle all season long, especially with only 10 minutes to go here.
No, we haven't. And this is kind of what we've been looking for all season with these reverse grids, but we haven't really seen too much of it. So to have it now really is exciting, and it means that we are going to get a great way to end the season. Breitenbach and Hoyland very close together as they cross the line. Luke King with them as well. Now we see Eloff past Derbyshire as they run down towards turn 1 with Eloff in the slipstream of Hayden Miller. There will be no move for the lead this time round, but John Breitenbach feels like he needs to go defensive. Oh no! Oh no, Luke King! He's tapped the back. He's tapped the back of Matt Hoyland and he's spun himself around. We've seen it before a couple of times, but in such a high pressure scenario for RDSA, this is disaster. Lucchese out of the race, Denobica out of the race, and Luke King spinning from 3rd. Just an Eloff only 5th as well. This is not what they need at all.
So Luke King has stayed ahead of the Vulcan drivers. Plurg is still behind Pugh. So at the moment, as you can see, if I go back to the class, you can see that it's Luke King, then Vinchesevsky's, then Pugh and Plurg. So it's okay at the moment, but Eloff and King were in a much more favourable position. Now they, of course, came into this race with that 21-point advantage. So at the moment, it's looking good for the pair of them, Humphrey and Phillips, driving both of each other off the circuit there. That's going to allow Justin Eloff and potentially even Alex Fretwell through. We have a new race leader in the pro class then. Fretwell getting himself past Phillips. Humphrey is still in between them. This time though, it's the inverse as Fretwell leads Phillips. Humphrey stays where he is and Justin Eloff claims another position in this order, getting himself up and through. I'm not quite sure what went wrong between Humphrey there and Danny Phillips. Both of them off at the exit of the second Lesmo. Drama here, contact again between Phillips and Humphrey. Fiery between the pair of them in the cockpit. Humphrey on the inside, going into the Parabolica. Danny Phillips is going to want to get himself ahead because he knows that he's got to stay with Alex Fretwell if he wants to try and convert that race victory. He's led for the last 22 minutes here, and he's about to see it undone by really something that might not have been his mistake.
Yeah, let's see how this one unfolds as they run up towards turn number 1. Bit of a flashing of the lights from Danny Phillips as he maybe looks to try and get through, and William Humphrey down in towards turn number 1. Humphrey looks to defend the inside line, will very harshly defend the inside line, make Danny Phillips jump to the outside, and the McLaren's going to try and tiptoe his way around the outside, but there's really no room at the end for him, and he has to sit behind. He can't stick it up the inside at turn 2 with that little of an overlap and another flashing of the lights. Clearly some displeasure in the cockpit for Danny Phillips. There's a few drivers who I think will feel like they deserve a little bit more over the course of this race, but William Humphrey wouldn't mind a P6 more with this. You'd have to say it's not necessarily where he'd expect to be after where he started in the opening couple of laps, but he's not going to say no, is he?
Yeah, let's see what happened here. I believe this is the clip that we need then. Is he going to send it up the inside? Yes, he does. Wow, we haven't seen anyone going up the inside of the first Lesmo. Then he will then be on the inside of Danny Phillips, and then once again, looks as like, does he just get a little bit of oversteer? Does he make a little bit of contact? Ooh, I might just watch that one back one more time and see on the exit of the second Lesmo, does Humphrey run wide and get tagged a little bit by Phillips, or do they both choose the same option, the safe option, by avoiding contact? Let's run on board with that rear cam then. Watch the rear left of Humphrey's car as they exit the corner. There is contact, and that forces Humphrey off the circuit, allowing Fretwell through and the RDSA machine. They'll be okay to save, you know, they haven't lost too much there, still well within contention, but you could see why the run down toward turn 1 was so aggressive by the pair of them there, wanting to get back at one another. I'm sure they'll both feel like that in that circumstance, it was the fault of either driver.
Yeah, to be fair, from that angle, it did look like that William Humphrey just drifted wide into the line of Danny Phillips, and then Danny's got absolutely nowhere to go. Lucky that neither of them spun around, but yeah, it did seem that William did drift a little bit. Drifting to the outside line is Matt Hoyland down into turn number 1, looking for the lead of the race. Not going to be able to find it there. Maybe looking to set up the exit for a good run to the Della Roger. Meanwhile, for P3, Sam Derbyshire being pressured by Hayden Miller, the Scotsman. Oh, he looks for an inside line. There was no room there. He's gone into the gravel. Can he hold on to the position ahead of Justin Alof? Alof's going to have a much better run down into the Della Roger, but I think through Curva Grande, he will just about keep it safe. But with these two battling now, it's become a two-horse race between John Breitenbach and Matt Hoyland for the final race win of the season. Two names that I don't think we've talked about much towards the front of the order all season long, but they're not going to complain. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
God, that one was close, Dara. Up the inside went Danny Phillips. Kept it out of it, though, and Fretwell just about leaving enough room to lead them both through that corner into the Lesmos. They go then. 5.5 minutes to go. There's so much action up and down this grid. Hoyland and Breitenbach have formed their own pack. Derbyshire, Miller and Elof have their own pack as well. And then we have the lead of the Pro Class still going on as well. Van der Water could get himself up past Lorenzo Gorgetto, of course, to get himself up onto the podium. Let's see how those guys are getting on. A little bit of a bigger gap with a few cars still ahead of them, and it is still advantage to RDSA in the context of the team's championship as well. Vinciszewski's has got past King, but it's not going to be enough to, of course, overturn that deficit of points with Elof currently sitting in P number 5. And it was a nice simple move. In fact, no, it wasn't a simple move. Contact around the outside goes Vinciszewski's, which becomes the inside line. Gets that one done nicely on the exit of the second corner, and he was fighting that back, but by the time they would have reached the Della Rogia chicane, I believe Vinciszewski's would have got that one done. The battle continues. Let's ride on board and see how they got this one done. Two drivers. We said, Dara, right at the start of the show that these two teams were predicted to have a great battle, and we're seeing it right toward the end of the championship. Great move by Vinciszewski's to get himself up and past the RDSA driver.
Yeah, really good. An effective move in the end there, and as time's ticking down, there isn't much time to get these moves done. Breitenbach under pressure from Hoyland. Hoyland up the inside into the Della Roger. This is the closest he's been to the lead in the last 20 minutes around the outside of the second part. Does he get the drive? He'll have the overlap, but can Breitenbach get back up the inside into Lesmo 1 that they go? Breitenbach can't quite find the right line. Hoyland sweeps around the outside, takes the position, and now has to start trying to run away. There's 4 minutes just under that to go. Sam Derbyshire is there. There are going to be 2 laps on conclusion of this one, and I think that was crucial for Hoyland to get through. Derbyshire's shown some absolutely fantastic pace over the last lap and a half to keep himself in contention for the race win, and now Hoyland has that buffer of John Breitenbach. The issue now is he has to keep him behind. The run through Ascari, Breitenbach slightly offline, but Hoyland's not going to have it his own way in the last 2 laps.
Tell you what, that was brilliant racing by the pair of them through the Rogier chicane there. It looked just perfect. 2 of them getting both of their cars through that corner without any contact. We'll go back and take a look at that one in just a moment once Hoyland has secured this position. We, of course, don't want to miss the positions in return. Sam Derbyshire closing on the back of this one then with not so long left to go. So this is where we'll pick up these drivers, and we'll watch this. Oh, this is a little bit too early, actually. They've been going at each other for quite some time. Hoyland momentarily got himself past. I don't want to watch all of this. Let's cut a little bit further on toward the second chicane and right on board from the perspective of Matt Hoyland. Got a great run, but crucially got it slowed down enough to leave the space to then go around the outside at the exit of the next corner. Smashing racing by the pair of these drivers.
Yeah, really incredible from the both of them, and Hoyland with the move to take the race lead, but back through came... Oh, this is... I'm quite excited to show it. Still the replay. Look at me. I'm making a mockery of myself. Hoyland's around the outside. There he is. Got the drive, and that's what got it done. These are live pictures now, and Hoyland is still ahead of Breitenbach, and they aren't side by side. But Derbyshire may have a go around the outside of Lesmo 1. It's got to be bold to get it done there. If he wants to go at the lead, he probably needs to get a move done on Breitenbach before he gets to turn 1 once again. But he can't quite make it through Lesmo 2, and the run isn't amazing. Shouldn't get it done at Ascari either. This is going to come right down to the wire for the final race win of the season. There is all of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... another 8 braking zones to go maximum for Derbyshire to get this one done, and he's got 2 cars to get through. Hoyland's going to be feeling a little bit more confident with every passing corner, but confidence can be the greatest enemy in this kind of situation.
It can be. I was just about to say, Hoyland has to find that balance between pushing just enough but not pushing too much to cause his own spin, and of course he'll be hoping that Breitenbach puts up a stout defence against Sam Derbyshire in the closing stages, because Derbyshire is the kind of driver that Hoyland should be worried about when it comes to trying to defend the lead of the race. He's been so committed in so many different occasions throughout this season. He might be committed enough to put on a little bit of a bold move on Jean Breitenbach ahead as we run now down toward the first corner. Once again, Hoyland crosses the line in the lead of the race. He's got two drivers in behind him. Within half a second, defends the inside. Does Jean Breitenbach. Let's see. Are we going to see Breitenbach reappear? Oh, very deep on the brakes there. Goes Sam Derbyshire. They're still there, but Derbyshire has got that move done initially around the outside. Then it's stuffed up the inside, but Breitenbach is coming back at him. And this is exactly what Matt Hoyland will want to see, because look at how far he's got up the road now. That's all but done it for Hoyland at the end of the season. It's going to be a great way to round out the championship for Hoyland if he can keep it together. Only a few braking zones left to go, and these two continue to go side by side. Shut the door there, and that is going to allow Hayden Miller to get himself through. Flash of the headlights there by John Breitenbach. Not pleased by the way the DDK driver got himself through, but Hayden Miller, out of nowhere, has got himself up for what will be, if he can hold on to it, his second podium of the season. As we said earlier, 4 DNFs in the last 5, hasn't been inside the top 10 since the 9th round, and Hayden Miller has got himself onto the podium if he can hang it on for the next couple of corners.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if Hoyland, who should be able to keep this lead, is going to be able to take home the final race win of the season. He'll be delighted if he can. Derbyshire will catch, but not quite enough. Humphrey's still on the back of Alof as well. RDSA absolutely need to critically keep that top 5 place. It's kind of all they've got left after a really, really difficult day. Wide from Sam Derbyshire. He's lost out to Sam Breitenbach. To John Breitenbach, and he looks like he's lost out on the podium as well. Hoyland knows what's going to happen. He's already flashing the lights, and in the background you can see Elof running from Humphrey. It's all happening in the final sector.
Yeah, looks like Humphrey's going to hold on. Looks like Elof is going to hold on to that one. And for a man who didn't want to get in the sim 2 hours ago, what a great decision it was from Hoyland, because he converts maximum points for the first time this season. The DXT driver will sit, or will stand, should I say, on the top step of the podium in dramatic fashion. Off goes the RDSA car in the background as he crosses the line. Humphrey led, lost the lead of his own mistake, but he's managed to claw it back, and he'll be thoroughly satisfied with that. I believe we're going to be speaking to a very happy Hoyland in a matter of minutes. As he actually, look at that, that's nice, isn't it? John Breitenbach going side by side with Hoyland. They've shared a brilliant race, and what a way to end it. Two people who haven't really been in contention for race victories this season, and that is one way to round out the championship.
Yeah, really great to see that we had those two drivers going at it towards the end of the season. Everything really feels wrapped up, doesn't it, in terms of particularly the Drivers' Championships. To have two drivers who haven't really been in the fray, haven't really been in contention for the top 10 even in the championship, to battle out for the win in the final race really is fantastic, and just goes to show that there are going to be chances there for everybody when we come back for season 9 in just a few weeks' time, and gives everybody that little bit of hope that they need really to keep coming back. Keep thinking they can get these race wins. Great win from Fretwell as well. I mean, he came into this race with a basically impossible task to try and win the championship, and needing quite a lot of mistakes from Kalle Leskinen. Leskinen's only just about going to hold on to the championship lead, mind you. It's going to come down to about 20-30 points. But Fretwell did all he could. Sadly, though, not enough.
Absolutely right then. So plenty of donuts on display. I'm sure a lot of these drivers will be we'll be celebrating what has been a great championship. Of course, my PC not enjoying what we're seeing at the moment. That's a lot of tyre smoke, and the Vulcan Motorsports drivers equally very happy because of this man. Tjek Plug has done enough to win the championship. I don't think he would have predicted that one at the start of the season, and I don't think he would have nullified Luke Lucchese to just one race victory this season. That came around Portimao right at the start of the season in the second race meeting, and since then Lucchese hasn't been able to get on the top step. Plug did that on 4 separate occasions, only 5 podiums for the eventual champion, but a series of P3s, 4s and 5s was enough for Plug to see out the championship in style, of course, and I believe that the RDSA team will have done enough to win that championship. I believe Mr. Bostock will be compiling all the numbers now. I'm not sure how the Axis team got on down there in their split, but definitely here in Split A, the RDSA drivers, with Elof finishing ahead and Luke King finishing ahead of Plurg, will have done enough to maintain that 21-point advantage coming in to this final race. It's a victory lap for the champion, well deserved. The tyres will be asking him to stop, but he's not gonna. He'll run it all the way down toward the pit lane.
Yeah, he will do a full in-lap, a full victory tour of the circuit after what was, in the end, a fantastic result from him. And to wrap up a championship, he's been kind of the favourite, it's fair to say, in the last few weeks, but it's been a bit of a stumble, particularly with newer names coming to the fore, and the strength of William Humphrey in the last few weeks particularly as well. But turning up when it matters for Plurg, and bringing home that driver's title for the Vulcan Motorsports team, who have been so competitive so far this season. But what a race to wrap up the championship as well, Trey.
Absolutely then. So let's take a look at those feature results before we bring in a host of very happy drivers. Already 7 of them in the order. Depending on how many more join, we might fly through a few of them. We'll speak to our champions and then we'll go through a couple of the other guys, see how many we can get through. Of course, though, we don't want to be here all night. So let's run through the elite standings first for that final race and for the final time this season to round off this Season 8 championship here in Split A. I never thought I'd be saying this during this season. It's been a campaign of, well, frankly, misery for Matt Hoyland. He's had some very competitive championships in the past, but this one has not been for him. He wasn't going to race tonight. He chose to turn on the same at the last second, and that has seen him to the very, very front of the order. Matt Hoyland, then the 144 British driver for DXT Motorsports, converts his first and only race victory of the season in cracking style. Hoyland will be so pleased with that one. After, as well, a long drive today. I believe he's been up since the early hours of the morning, and so I'm sure it's been a decision worthwhile for him to turn up tonight. Hayden Miller in the end got P2. What will be his best finish of the season as well? He got a P3 in the first half of the season, but what a way to round out your championship by getting your best result in the final time of asking. John Breitenbach, same can be said for him. I don't think he's been on the podium this season either, so it's a podium of firsts for 3 of our drivers. Brilliant way to end the championship. Sam Derbyshire, he's had a pretty good time of it. That's his. He's had 3 podiums so far this season. A P4. There was an opportunity for him, of course, to win that second race, but he did that to aplomb in race 1, ahead of Justin Elof, who did what he needed to do for RDSA when it comes to the team's championship standings, in the absence of Zanobliga and Luke Lucchese. William Humphrey in P6, then ahead of Ignas Binchazevsky's. Luke King, the second of our RDSA drivers, ahead of eventual champion Tjecht Plurg in P9. Thomas Pugh rounds out the top 10 ahead of Luke Van Gotel, Jakob Krafek, Paul Cowlishaw and Dominic Horvath Sanity. Quinta Verdonk, Tristan Zanobliga and Luke Lucchese will score no points. 3 of the drivers battling for that team's championship. In the end, drama for them. They couldn't bring home the points in the final session.
Over then. In the pro class for the final time this season, it was 2 wins from 2 tonight from Alex Rockwell and 2 P2s from 2 for Danny Phillips. I think he'll feel slightly aggrieved in the end after, of course, that contact with William Humphrey towards the end of the race took him out of contention for the race win, but still a very good evening for him. Lorenzo Gorgetto picked up a podium in the end after, of course, getting himself on pole position earlier on tonight. Lawrence van der Voort and Jon Gonzalez, 4th and 5th, massive gap between those two in terms of the time, with Joshua Cohen ahead of Biagio Contrale, the 3rd of the Ferraris, down only in P7. Stephen Codman, Robin L. Brown and Chris Jennings rounded out the top 10, with Marcel Breitenbach finishing in 11th. Wayne Basson and Victor Van Zijs were the only other drivers to finish within a minute. Caleb Eskelin was a mile away, but he won't really care. He is the champion in the class. Stephen Hobbs, after that massive crash, somehow finished on the lead lap. He was up in the air at one point. Joshua Nest was 11 laps down. Massimo and Alexander Fuita didn't get going in that race either. But for Alex Fretwell, 2 wins from 2 to complete the season. He'll be delighted.
Absolutely will be then. So we'll go ahead and we'll speak to a few of our drivers. We've got a lot of them waiting for us in the interview booth, but we'll start, I think it's only right, Dara, to go to our elite class champion. That's Mr. Tjecht Plurg, who will shortly be joining us in the booth. And I'm ready when you are, Dara, to go ahead and begin speaking to one of many of our A-Split drivers to round out the season.
Yeah, champion, of course, really, of the entire league as well. 4 classes, and the best class was won by this man. We are joined by the man himself, the champion. Sir, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Well, welcome back into the booth, Mr. Plug. Congratulations, big time on that one. It's been yours. You've had your hands on it for so long, and now it's finally converted. I don't want to ask you too much about the race just yet. Just tell us how you're feeling, first of all, now that you've finally secured the championship.
I feel so happy. At the start of the championship, like I said last time, I never expected to be even fighting for close to the top. But then at the end, I got in P1, and then I stayed there. So I'm so happy with it.
But I mean, for you, it's been quite a long season. It's not necessarily been the easiest season overall. You mean you had the wins that have kind of been puckered around the season at the start last week as well, but the consistency's really been keeping you up there. I think you've only been outside the top 5 twice so far this season, which is crazy when you've only had, I think, 5 or 6 podiums. So talk us through how you've been able to keep that consistency so high, because that really is what separated you from the pack.
Yeah, I don't know. My whole racing career, I've just been a consistent driver instead of a very fast one. Like qualifying, I cannot do. It's just that I have the racecraft and I can just drive consistently. That's all about me, actually. It's nothing else.
And do you think that the Corvette has suited those styles, of course? Because not too many drivers in that car, of course, a few notable ones up and down the championship order. But as we've seen, the Acura quite dominant, the Porsche even more dominant. Are you pleased with your choice? Obviously, because it's winning the title. But do you think you could have got any more from the car, or were you quite satisfied with that throughout the whole season?
I think on almost every track, the car was off pace by a small bit, especially on the straights. If there was a high downforce track, I suffered on the straights. But once it was on Monza, for example, where you actually had to run low wing, the car was a monster on the straights. But I think the Chevy is quite opposite to what my driving style is like, as it is very inconsistent because it has a lot of snap oversteer moments. But I just like to drive it, and that's why I took it, kinda.
So I noticed that yourself and Mr. Vinchezevskis have signed up for our next championship season in season 9. So tell us, I mean, you've obviously got a title to defend. I'm sure the RDSA drivers will be keen to try and displace you from that championship. Are you going to set yourself any expectations for that one? Or again, see how it goes, see where you stand after the first couple of rounds? Or are you going to change anything in your approach to try and defend this championship?
I will, of course, try to get there again, but after seeing some people having insanely high iRating, I don't think it's possible anymore, because I think there was one with 9k iRating. Don't see myself winning from that guy, so I'll just see how close I get to him.
Yeah, you're right, actually. We've got a couple of new guys. I'm looking at the list now. We've got a few new guys inside the 4,000s. We've got Yanis making his return, Daniel Handover, who was in the championship but didn't show up an awful lot, and then yes, Andrew Dawson, 9,000 iRating. So it will be a challenge, mate, but you've done something that I think you wouldn't have imagined yourself doing 3 months ago, and so you never know. It could happen again. We'll certainly be rooting for you to make that one happen. So before we let you go, we've got quite a few drivers to speak to, but just summarise your thoughts, and then of course you can give a shout out to anyone before we let you go.
For the shout out, I will shout out my team, as we're still a very new team. We have just kind of started like a year ago, I think, and it's been a pleasure driving with them, as it is a very it's a very cool team to be with, and we're really trying to find new drivers to grow, as we really want to. And as you can see, the team championship, we might also be very high in. So yeah.
Good stuff, mate. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations again. You can wrap up those celebrations. I'm sure they'll last for quite some time, and we'll look forward to seeing how you get on next season.
Yeah, thank you a lot. And the commentating was great as well. So
very
thank
good,
you
mate.
for that.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you. And from one champion to the other. Plug to Kalle Leskinen, who is, of course, our champion, as we've kind of been expecting in the last few weeks in that Pro Class. Kalle joins us now. Welcome in, Kalle. Can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Welcome back then, Mr. Kalle. We haven't spoken to you for a little while, but we wanted to save this one for the end of the season. You got the job done. It wasn't so easy in race 2, but you must have felt the pressure drop. Did you know, I assume you knew after the first race, that you'd done everything that you needed to do to bring home the championship?
Yeah, the first race, I knew that it was pretty much done deal, excluding if I get reported. I think I drove into Robin, but otherwise, yeah, it was pretty much that I come in to the race and have a pulse, and I'll secure the championship. So I did what I needed to do.
Yeah, and I mean, it was good that you kind of got that done in the first race, because the second race, fair to say, didn't necessarily go your way. I mean, how much...
No, I honestly that Kimi and went to my yacht.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of took the pressure off, didn't it? But I mean, how much pressure have you felt over the course of the season? Because, you led the championship from the start. Did you really expect to be leading it from start to finish?
Yeah, at the start I felt much more pressure, and I practiced a lot more, which clearly shows in the results. And in the latter half of the race, I had a real life things to do, so I didn't have really much time to practice. And yeah, but it was good that I had one race lead over the season.
So it looks as though you're back with us again next season in the Pro Class again, so you'll have an opportunity to defend your championship. Now, let's see, with a couple of new faces on the grid, let's see if anyone can challenge you. It was maybe a little bit closer come the end than what you might have thought. Halfway through the season, it looked like you were going to build that gap. But are you confident coming back once again next season to try and defend this championship?
Yes, definitely. I'll be practicing much more, so I can get those qualifying time much better.
Very good, very good. Well, brilliant. Thanks for joining us as always, and again, congratulations on what's been a great season for you and something that I'm sure you're very proud of. So before we let you go, if you'd like to give a shout out to anybody and just round up how that season's gone, then you can do that now.
I don't know. I'm gonna shout out Men's Mental Health Awareness Month is June, so I'm gonna shout out that one.
Very good. Very good cause there, mate. I appreciate that. So good stuff. We'll let you go, and you can enjoy the weekend knowing that the job is done, and you can look forward to the next season.
It has been fun watching the broadcast after the races.
I'm glad you enjoy, mate. Thank you so much. We'll speak to you soon.
Kalle Leskinen there, worthy champion, of course, in that Pro Class, but it wasn't just the champions that we had to talk a lot about tonight. There was also, I think it's fair to say, a bit of a surprise race winner in the Elite Class. I think he'd agree with us. We'll find out. Matt Hoyland joins us now. Matt, welcome in. Can you hear us, first of all?
I can hear you. Good evening.
Well, welcome, mate. First of all, I'm not quite sure what to say, considering you weren't going to turn up. It looked, we were highlighting you, P18, P17, P16, got yourself into P15, and then it looked as though it had all gone wrong right at the start of the race, but you were there, you clawed it back, and you've done it. How does that feel?
Unbelievable. Like the devastation of throwing away only my second ever win in the last round of last season. To then be able to get it this season, yeah, just amazing. Like you're saying, the moment I had early in the race, I thought, well, that's that then. there goes all chance, and by some manner of miracle, I managed to go reel Jean back in and stayed with him and finally got it done. Yeah, just great. I couldn't really have done it any better, I don't think.
You've got to talk us through the move, though, Matt, because to get it done where you did for the lead of the race in those kind of circumstances, it was really, really bold. But getting the drive out of the Della Roger, did you feel like you could cover off Lesmo one quite quickly? I mean, talk us through what you were thinking in the moment.
To be honest with you, there wasn't that much thought going on. I'd been following John closely for a number of laps, and he'd been sort of scouting himself out for me because he kept going defensive into one. But the trouble with the Porsche, because it gets such a good drive, you can't really cut back on it. So even if I force him sort of offline and a compromised entry, because it drives so well out, I was never quite close enough. And thankfully on the lap I got it done, I got an even better run over the start finish, which allowed me to stay in around the outside and really sort of mess John up on exit, and then get the toe again. I was getting to the point where I thought I'm gonna have to try something different. I know John is really good driver, really respectful. I've had plenty of battles with him before, and he's someone that I knew I could trust in that situation where I knew we were going to give each other space. And thankfully, yeah, as you say, I managed to just get clear enough before we hit Lesmo 1. And yeah, from there, thankfully the guys behind all started battling each other, and I didn't really have to do much more than hit my apexes.
Yeah, very good, mate. So before we let you go, looking ahead to next season, I'm just checking the standings now. You've got yourself a new team, another merger with the ORA guys over there. So Josh and Yayan, of course, familiar in this series. You've got a couple of guys in the other classes as well. Owen down there in the Evo class. So that strikes me as quite a strong team. And maybe if you found a car to do it in, if you're confident staying in that Mercedes with the likes of Yayan and Ostic by your side, that could really bode well. You might have a pretty good season next time out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the aim. Obviously, the Mercedes is a car I've always liked, but is a bit of a niche. Like the guys that know how to drive it really fast, and I know Yayan's really experienced in it. We've seen him appear in ESR a number of times with the Mercedes, and if I'm ever going to take it for a full season, I think having him as a teammate and working together is going to be the best thing for me. But yeah, definitely a strong team. Obviously, we've seen Yayan get wins. I've proved to myself tonight that I can make this car work. So I'll obviously do my best to support him as well. And then obviously, yeah, Josh, very strong in his own right, and Owen, hopefully he can make a push in the Evo class as well. So yeah, really looking forward to it. We'll see what happens with these new changes with the tyre model and such. For all we know, the Mercedes could be the best car, which would be great, but we'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, lots to decide and not that long to do it, of course. Only a few weeks break, if that, and then we're back underway for Season 9. So good stuff, Matt. Thanks for joining us. As always, a chance for a shout-out before we let you go, and we'll try and bring in the final couple of drivers for a quick word.
Yeah, I think this shout out will get to yourself and Dara. Obviously, the streams have been superb. I know full well I'll be watching every second of this one back. It's been great to watch back. We really appreciate all you do. Thanks to James, Rob, and obviously Alex as well, and yourself for organising everything, and to everyone on the grid. You know, it's always great fun, and I'm really looking forward to going again next time.
Good stuff, mate. Well, congratulations. You can enjoy that one over the weekend, and we'll see how things get on with your new team, the new cars as well, going into the next season. So congratulations, and I'm sure we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you, guys.
Matt Hoyland then, race winner tonight, but he wasn't the only race winner. We had a double race winner in that pro class, and it was Alex Fretwell. Did all that he could in his attempts to try and claw back the championship. Alex joins us now. Can you hear us, Alex?
Yes, I can.
Good stuff, mate. Well, welcome back into the booth. We leave one driver who was unsure about whether he was going to race and eventually won his race, and the same can be said for you. Unsure last week, obviously confirmed earlier in the day that you would be here, and you've sought out 100 points for yourself and of course for the team, which is a great haul. Just talk us through that one, of course, around Monza in the Ferrari. What a great way to round off the season.
Yeah, absolutely. The first sort of target was to seal P2. Second after that was try and get myself a couple of wins, or well, at least one win. I don't think you can expect two with the reverse grid, but then after that I was trying to get myself into within 50 points of Calais, so I could sort of tell myself without the points deduction that I'd won it. But I think I just missed out on that. I think it was 52 in the end, ironically. The first race was okay. Obviously, I think it was Lorenzo who started ahead, but got together with one of the elite guys. It was a bit messy towards the end with one of the rejoins at Ascari. Sort of broke my toe a bit, and then some sort of management for people getting grid places. Again, broke the toe on the last lap, which made it a bit closer than I'd liked with Danny over the line. Which obviously put me P2 in class. I think we were quite fortunate that the rest of the pros were out of the reverse grid. I'm going to wind Matt up by saying he absolutely 100% intentionally went off and came back in right between me and Danny, which, yeah, obviously gave Danny a bit of a lead, and then a couple of the usual elite adventurous overtakes. So I think there's about 3 cars between me and Danny at that point. Matt got back ahead of him, which left 2 teammates ahead. And I think at that point it would have stayed the same to the end. They were sort of managing their race and swapping positions a little bit. I don't think they really had much intention of going forward. So yeah, I had to look behind me, and there was I think Sam and William, and I think Hayden was the other one that I sort of let go to try and shake up that sort of teammate barrier between myself and Danny. And just sort of mess things up as much as possible. Like I say, it was pretty static, so it was looking pretty grim at one point, about 5 places behind him, but playing the long game. Honestly, I could talk all night, but I need to get this rig down. The move that should have happened last week is now happening tomorrow, so this is my last job to get this stripped and get ready for tomorrow.
No, it's all good, mate. Well, congratulations, as I said.
I'll take a breath now.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, looking ahead to the next season, of course, a quick word on your team. You've got yourself alongside Phil and James once again, so another opportunity for RLH potentially to do a little bit of challenging, of course, 1 driver in each division. So a quick word on that, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, obviously, somehow managed to set the team start last season. I don't think we were quite up there this season, obviously, myself dropping a few points and that. But still, we're out at the sharp end. I think, like you say, the other 2 guys being in different classes gives us the opportunity to maximise points each week. We're not taking points off each other. So, yeah, if we put some work in, I don't see any reason why we couldn't sort of be right up there again. Obviously, there's a massive amount of strong teams. I know a lot of teams have been doing a bit of hiring, so yeah, I think it'll be as strong as ever next season. In terms of myself in the pro class, I think we were meant to be moving up to elite, but then some late sign-ups with ridiculous iRates has pushed me back down. Yeah, I don't know really. There's quite a few new faces next season, so. Probably stick with a Ferrari. I've got quite comfortable now. I've learned my lesson. Yeah, and see how it goes in the first few races. See what sort of pecking order there is.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Well, good stuff. Thanks for joining us, and congratulations on that double race victory. You can go and take your sim down now. We're going to move on to a couple of other drivers, so thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll speak to you not too long in the future, probably right toward the start of next season.
Yeah, just a quick shout out to Callie as well. Obviously, he's been pretty insane for most of the season. I think he dropped off a little bit towards the end, but obviously protecting that lead. And also just to Danny as well, he's gone really strong towards the end. And definitely took everything possible to beat him tonight. So yeah, a really strong race for him.
Absolutely right. We're about to go and speak to him now, so we might be listening on in the background. But thanks for joining us, Alex, and yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, thank you very much.
Well then, back off. 2 wins tonight, but he was just ahead of this man, Danny Phillips, who picked up 2nd place in both the races tonight. Danny, welcome, and can you hear us first of all?
I can.
Good stuff. Well, I mean, definitely positive to take. Of course, we'll get on to race 2 in a minute, but really good uptick of pace in the last few weeks from you. Where have you been able to find this like new echelon of pace in the last couple of weeks?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think it's always been underlying. I think the start of the season, there was a few unfortunate events, getting caught up in incidents up ahead and just not generally qualifying very well, which didn't help myself. I think it's been there or thereabouts, but it's just I've got away with some incidents in more recent races, and that's helped get the results in the end.
It certainly has, and 2P2s is definitely a really, really good way to end the season. But talk us through what happened in race 2. Of course, you and William Humphrey were fighting in towards Lesmo 2. It looked like he, in effect, kind of got a little bit too deep into the corner, pushed you wide, and there was contact. You both went into the gravel. Is that kind of how you saw it? And do you feel like it takes away from your performances tonight, or do you still see the positives?
No, I still see the positives. It was a bit of an aggressive move, really, from William, but he was in his own battle for the elite class and chasing down a top 5 finish. So I don't really hold anything against him for it, but it's a shame really because it did cost me the win. Alex got through as a result of me getting pushed off, and that's kind of ruined the end result for the season really. But it was still, like you say, it's still a great result to get the P2, and I'm really happy to get that. But it's a shame it wasn't rounded off with a win at the end.
But where do you feel like this leaves you going to next season? Of course, it's not going to be long. It's only a few weeks until we get going for season 9. Do you have slightly higher ambitions now that you've had these really good performances the last couple of weeks?
Absolutely, I want to round off some good results next season, get some wins under the belt, and hopefully be fighting for the title next season. I have got a team for next season, so I'm not just fighting for myself this time around. So hopefully get some good team points in there and run for the team championship as well.
It'll be good to see you involved in that as well. But Danny, thanks for joining us. Congratulations once again. Before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to on the stream?
Just appreciate you guys for the commentary you've done for the season. It's been really great to listen along while I've been racing, so thank you very much for you both, and to the admins and the stewards that have organised the league through the season.
Yeah, top man. Thanks, Danny. And yeah, congratulations again, and we look forward to speaking to you again at the start of season 9.
Cheers, guys.
Danny Phillips there, then Joe, to talk to, and I think we can get a quick word from Sam Derbyshire. Of course, won race number 1, didn't he, this evening? And Sam joins us now. Sam, can you hear us?
I can indeed.
Well, welcome into the booth, Sam, once again. Another competitive session from you. You can summarise that one for us quickly. We've obviously spoken to a lot of drivers as well. We've spoken to Alex, who we've actually got you on screen now, battling against, heading through the bumpy and bouncy chicane. So talk us through how the Corvette felt in that one. We saw some pretty competitive driving from drivers up and down the grid in that Corvette, and it's rounded out the season quite nicely for you in the end.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, I think the first race was pretty clean. I feel like everybody in the second race lost their heads. Honestly, I just felt like everybody was spinning out in front of me. I mean, even I lost my head on the exit of Ascari on the last lap, so should have been a P2, but it is what it is. But yeah, just solid race, I think. The best I could do, to be honest. I had a bit of an incident with Tristan, but I've learned as the season's gone on, they like to get their elbows out, so mine come out too now, so we'll go with that one.
Yeah, and just talk us through, I mean, that's obviously the first time that you guys have entered the championship with DDK, so a pretty strong result for yourself personally. Maybe not the highest finish in the team's championship for the team as a whole, of course. I don't think have Kevin and Raz, I'm not sure if they were in split B or if they started the season and maybe didn't continue, but what are the ambitions, the hopes for the team next season if you're coming back to us? And are you looking forward to that if you are?
So for next season, I am with Vulcan, so I'll be with Ignis and Mr. Blurg himself. So
that's a big transfer.
So it should be an interesting season next season, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've just about to look at that on the order there. I missed that one when I looked a little bit earlier at how things were lining up, but that is arguably the biggest transfer in the elite class, I would guess, because yourself finishing in the top 5, of course, ahead of Vinciszewski's and obviously not ahead of Plug, but that really will be a very, very competitive setup. I'm sure you're looking forward to that one.
Very much so. It's better to work with these guys and be on their side rather than having to fight against them. So yeah, next season should be good, man. Good
stuff, mate. Well, congratulations on that victory. Congratulations on the new team, of course, and congratulations on a top 5 finish. In the end, I'm sure you're satisfied with that. So before we let you go and speak to the final driver to close the interviews, if you'd like to give anyone a shout out, you can go ahead and do that now.
Just a big congratulations to Mr. Plug, and yeah, see you guys next season.
Good stuff, mate. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the preparation, and yeah, we'll be really looking forward to seeing how you line up in the Vulcan colours this time next season. Sorry, in
no worries.
Time. Good stuff.
Yeah,
mate.
cheers,
See you
gents.
soon.
Great to speak in the end to Sam Derbyshire there at the end of his season. Very interesting just to hear about his move as well. That could really check things up for season 9.
Yeah, really, really could then. So I think we've got one last driver waiting to speak to us. We'll get him in. Hayden Miller for what was it his first or his second podium of the season? I don't quite recall. Let me see. It was his second podium of the season, his best finish of the championship coming right toward the end. And Dara, I'll leave this one to you. We can go ahead and speak to our final driver.
Yeah, it'll be good to get in Hayden after another great result. Hayden, I believe joins now. Can you hear us, Hayden?
Hello, yes I can.
Well, talk us through that final race, because to get P2 on the line, that really took some effort. It must have been a fantastic last couple of laps for you in the driver's seat. Talk us through it.
Yeah, that second race was definitely something I wasn't expecting. I seen Matt and Jean were scrapping quite heavily into the final lap, and Sam just getting past me and then just flying away as he normally does. I seen going into the second chicane, Jean and Sam were like tussling, and then I think Jean made a mistake, and I just took benefit, and I was like, screw it, it's the last lap, so I just launched it over the curb. I think I was all 4 wheels off the ground, and got past him. Yeah, then I was just to keep my head down for the final lap and not make any mistakes, because over the short period of testing I did and all the practice, I didn't have the pace or the confidence in the car. So if I had a better setup or a better understanding of how to brake in this car at Monza, I probably would have done a lot better. But yeah, it was a very fun race against Alex and the other drivers.
But a great way for you to round out the season as well. I mean, really, really effective in terms of getting some points in the back end of the season. Where do you feel like that leaves you going into season 9? Where are the aspirations?
Going into season 9, my hopes are definitely higher than this season. Obviously, this season just starting out with me and my dad, just literally from a father and son karting team to morphing into an esports team, with the karting becoming more of a sideline thing, and then having Robin stepping in halfway through the season, now to having a total of 8 drivers lined up for season 9, split across 2 teams. Yeah, it's been good with season 8, and hopefully even better with season 9 with the drivers we've managed to snatch and pick at the same time.
But that's exactly what you're looking for, isn't it? But congratulations again, Hayden, on a P2. Before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on the stream?
Yeah, just shout out to my dad for putting all the effort in, all the time building up the Discord server, learning how to do it, all the effort putting into the league. The amount of highs and lows I've seen him go through whilst testing is immense. Also, shout out to Marius Hibma for coaching my dad through all the tough times, and just being a good friend to be there near.
Well, that's very good to hear, actually. Sorry, Dara. That's very good to hear, actually. I'm looking at the standings for next season, Hayden, and I must say you've snuck. You casually say we're bringing in some new drivers, and then you forget to mention that it's Mr. Kalle Leskinen lining up with you guys next season, which will be a very strong addition. And interestingly, I see James Robinson as well, who was temporarily my teammate a little while ago. So been a while since I've seen James on the grid. We didn't race with each other very much, but he was there for the time being. And also good to hear the good words about Marius as well. We've got him with us over at GlassTech as well, and he is a very, very strong driver, very good lad as well. So very good on the up, always like to see, but a very interesting transfer. We just spoke to Sam Derbyshire, who's moving over to the Vulcan Motorsports team to join Vinciszewski's and Plurg, and now you guys have been able to draft in Leskinen, so that's really going to merge 2 sort of strong drivers in their own little teams into some very competitive teams next season. So that will be one to watch. Very much looking forward to that. Thanks for joining us, Hayden. Of course, congratulations again on your best result of the season. Good luck with the preparation, and can't wait to see you guys on the track in a couple of weeks' time ahead of season 9.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it. See you.
Good stuff, mate. Thank you. Bye-bye.
There was the last driver, I think, that was waiting at all for us, Joe.
It is. We got through everybody. It's the most interviews I think we've ever done. But what we must do now, Dara, is go back very briefly to the championship order. Mr. Bostock has corrected everything for us, and we can now bring you some news, which, classic, I got it wrong. I'm going to have to go back and figure out how exactly I got it wrong, because I mean, the mental maths is usually pretty good. On the fly, when you're live, it's sometimes a little bit harder because I can't exactly start opening up a spreadsheet while I've got everything else going on. But if we take a look at this, we will see... No, we won't, because it hasn't refreshed. If you give me one moment, I should be able to refresh this. Let me see if I can figure this one out. Has that worked? Yes, it has. Okay, refresh. There we go then. So, not out of nowhere, but out of my radar, the Vulcan team have won the team's championship. And it's, as you rightly said earlier, Dara, 11 points between the top 4 teams split across all of our championships from Split A and Split B. So an incredible finish between those 4 teams, of course, but what an effort by the Vulcan Motorsports drivers to win the team's championship by 3 points over the series. You know, that sort of legendary team in ESR. The RDSA team have been there and done it before on so many occasions. To win it by 3 points in dramatic style, Denobriga and Lucchesi both failing to finish the race, and I was convinced that Elof outscoring Vinciszewski's by a couple of positions and then King outscoring Plurg by 1 position would have been enough to maintain that 20 point or so advantage, given that I got that maths right going into the second race. Alas, it doesn't seem to have been the case, so a huge congratulations to the Vulcan team. That's a double championship for Mr. Plurg.
Yeah, incredible really when you think about it. And when you consider that RLH was third there on 1,316 points, Fretwell got all the points he could get tonight. They were only just shy of somehow coming through the middle and winning the championship with help from James Pallow and Wesley Banner, and of course who were in B split. But really incredible to see how close it is in the end. I mean, for an entire season to come down to 11 points across 2 tiers, across 2 splits, 4 classes. I mean, it really is exceptional. And for Vulcan to pick up Derbyshire as well, I mean, that's going to be a really scary team next season.
Yeah, that's actually made the interviews all worthwhile. To learn that Leskinen is joining Phoenix Racing, giving himself a proper team, because Leskinen has effectively been racing by himself all season. He's been scoring points week after week, but it hasn't counted towards another championship, which he's more than entitled to take part in. So it's really good to see that he'll get himself in with a proper team next season. And yes, I do think still that Sam Derbyshire to Vulcan is the transfer of the off-season for sure. So a huge congratulations to the Vulcan Motorsports team. They're of course going to now go side by side with RDSA, 4 drivers apiece, more opportunity to score points. Remember, the top 2 in each session will score those points, but it's good to see them getting 4 drivers, on the assumption of course that Mr. Verdonk returns next season, which it maybe doesn't look like he is actually. Let me just do a quick filter. We've got Derbyshire, we've got Vinciszewski's, we've got Plurg, so forget that. Verdonk not with them next season, so for the time being it is just another 3-man team, but still a brilliant signing to bring on board then. Let's take a quick look at the elite class standings, but I will have to refresh this one as well, more than likely, so just bear with me. There it is then. That is the order in the end, and William Humphrey took Luke Lucchesi to claim that P2 spot. Now in the end, doesn't really change that much for Lucchesi. He'll still get a trophy and he'll still finish on that proverbial podium inside the top 3, but a cracking effort by Humphrey. It's probably only right that Humphrey's finished there, because his second half to the championship, Dara, has been nothing short of brilliant. He's only been off the podium on 2 occasions, once there tonight, once a few weeks ago, and that's exactly the kind of season that you want to have for a driver, let's not forget, who's been very competitive in championships gone by, but against the quality of this field, for Humphrey to come into the championship for the first time in a new car, take a points deduction as well, let's not forget. A 50-point hit was taken by William after the opening race, and he only finished 59 points behind. If he hadn't taken that car swap, of course, he might not have had the success that he did in the Porsche, but hypothetically, he might have only finished 9 points behind Plurg come the end.
Yeah, well, had he started in the car that he changed to, then it wouldn't really have made... he probably would have had a very, very close championship result to winning the championship. So really impressive from him. He's definitely going to have to be one to watch next season. But I am looking forward to season 9. I think we're getting stronger and stronger with every single season. And the championships feel like they're getting tighter as well. I can't wait to get going again.
Absolutely right then. And one last look at the Pro Class standings. The least movement really in this one, as you might expect. In the end, it was 52 points for Fretwell in behind Kalle Leskinen. 2 race wins for Fretwell. A great way to round off, and nearly did enough to win the team's championship. I'd love to see where Palo and Van Ren won, because if they had an incident at any point during that race in Split B, that would have been the moment where those 6 or 7 points needed by RLH would have been thrown away. So fingers crossed that didn't happen to them, because that would have been devastating. But I don't imagine Fretwell would have assumed that he would have scored 100 points, and therefore maybe Palo and Van Ren didn't feel that pressure that could have been. In the end, it was not meant to be, but that would have been one hell of a story if we'd refreshed that page and seen RLH at the top of the pile. They'll settle for third though, I'm sure, and get their hands on a trophy for the teams, which are becoming a little bit rarer these days. Teams used to get them a little bit further down the grid. Now it's just the top 3, so it is a little bit more of a close-knit club then. So that is going to be everything for us. Dara, I'll give you a chance just to summarise your thoughts there after what's been a mega championship season. Ups and downs for drivers all over the place. Fingers crossed we see RDSA bouncing back from what's been a pretty difficult second half to the season for them. And as we've said already, I cannot wait to see that strength improved by Vulcan going into next season.
Yeah, it's been quite nice to be on A-Split this season, obviously, for myself and yourself, Joe, after being on B-Split last season, but it's been really good to see some of the best drivers, well, the best drivers, of course, in ESR, going at it in these GT3 cars, and we've had some great championships, and I think towards the back end of this season, we've kind of seen drivers position themselves in different ways, which means I think we're going to be starting to see a lot of very close championships and a lot of drivers with high ambitions for next season when we start in just a few weeks' time. So yeah, really looking forward to the start of season 9, but you can't really forget the incredible season we've already had.
No, absolutely right then. So we will soon be signing off for this championship, and it's it's difficult because we've covered GT3 for a little while now. I will join you all for pre-season race 1 and for round 1, but then that will be me hanging up the mic in GT3 season 9 for a short while. I'll be away for round 2, 3 and 4, back on the grid as a driver in round 5. So the next time you hear from me in a couple of weeks might be in the interview booth with yourself, Dara, which I'll look forward to, absolutely. But we still have more racing action yet to be concluded around the park here at ESR. So that's GT3 rounded off. Season 9 sold out, gets underway in just a couple of weeks' time with a pre-season round at Okayama, a circuit that we haven't visited in quite some time. The European GT Championship making its way toward the closing stages. Still a handful of weeks left there, and of course, with that being a bi-weekly event, will take us a little bit longer to get toward the end. The Danny Lee Porsche Cup still well underway with a handful of rounds remaining there. Of course, you can catch those guys on track this Sunday evening. And then the Practice League. For anyone who wants to get involved, you can sign up using that the QR code on screen now, discord.gg/ESR via the link, and you can get involved with the Practice League Tuesday evenings, Saturday afternoons for anyone who can't get themselves a space on any of our highly competitive championship grids. A big thanks for the final time this season to our championship sponsors, of course, Kame, GP2 Group, Trophy AI and VRS. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to put on the show that we do. And of course, a thanks to the drivers, all of them, for showing up. Of course, a very busy championship. 56 drivers turned up for round 1, if my memory serves me correctly, and then toward the end still having 35 to 40 drivers showing up when not many of them have anything to fight for is a great community to have here with us. So thanks to James, of course, for doing everything he does to make this league possible, alongside the help of Mr. Rob Mackay, who is responsible for a lot of the stewarding results and all of the briefings and stuff, which is great to see. I'm not giving myself any credit, but I'm in the background there as well, and I've thoroughly enjoyed sharing the commentary box with you once again, Dara, for this championship, and I bet you can't wait to get going again, really.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to it. And it's not long, is it? I mean, I'm away the next couple of Thursdays, so I think by the time I get back, we'll be back into Season 9 anyway. So there's not really a break, is there? So it's nice to see us getting on to the new season so quickly. And yeah, I think, again, lots of drivers who are going to be looking forward to that season, and we will be too.
Absolutely right then. So I appreciate everyone who has stayed on behind to watch the rest of this. Quite an extended broadcast tonight, but that's totally fine for a season finale. That'll be everything from us. We'll wrap up here now, and we'll catch you in a few weeks' time for the pre-season opener of Season 9 GT3 Split A at the Okayama circuit. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you all very, very soon.